She whispered, "I do," at gunpoint, traded by her own father to a monster in an expensive suit. Alessandro De Luca didn't ask for her hand. He bought it. Now Livia Moretti wears a ring that feels like a shackle, locked inside a mansion that looks like paradise but functions like a prison. He says she's his wife. She knows she's his captive. And when she tries to run, he makes one thing brutally clear: escape isn't an option. This is the story of a forced marriage that became something far more dangerous than either of them expected. Stay until the end, hit that like button, and comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. The dress cost more than her father's debts. That was the first thing Livia noticed when they zipped her into it. Imported silk, hand-stitched beading, a train that pooled across marble floors like spilled milk. The second thing she noticed was that nobody asked if she wanted to wear it. "Stop fidgeting," her mother hissed, yanking the veil into place hard enough to make Livia's scalp sting. Maria Moretti's hands shook as she worked, her face pale beneath expertly applied makeup that couldn't quite hide the bruise yellowing along her jawline. "You look beautiful." Livia stared at her reflection. Beautiful. The word tasted like ash. She looked like a virgin sacrifice dressed for slaughter, which wasn't far from the truth. "Mama?" "Don't." Maria's voice cracked. She turned away, pressing a trembling hand to her mouth. "Just don't." Through the window of the bridal suite, Livia could see the cathedral, all Gothic spires and stained glass, packed with 500 guests who'd come to witness her execution masquerading as matrimony. News vans lined the street, photographers jostled for position. The whole city knew what this wedding really was: a transaction, a debt settlement. Her father gambling away everything they had, then gambling with the one thing left: her. The door opened without a knock. Vincent Moretti filled the frame, stuffed into a tuxedo that strained across his shoulders, his face flushed with the particular ruddiness that came from day drinking and ruined pride. "It's time," he said. Livia's stomach lurched. "Papa, please. Enough." His voice hit like a slap. He crossed the room in 3 strides, gripping her elbow hard enough to bruise. "You think I want this? You think I had a choice?" "We always have a choice," Livia whispered. He laughed, a bitter, broken sound. "You know nothing about choices, little girl. Nothing about what men like Alessandro De Luca do to people who default on their debts." His fingers tightened. "You want to know what choice looks like? It looks like them finding your mother's body in the river. It looks like me in pieces in a warehouse. This—" He shook her slightly. "This is mercy." Maria made a small, wounded sound. "You're a coward," Livia said quietly. Vincent's hand rose. For a second, she thought he'd actually hit her. Then he lowered it, something almost like shame flickering across his features. "Yeah," he said finally, I am. But you'll be alive. And maybe—" He couldn't finish, just pulled her toward the door. The cathedral was an ocean of faces that blurred together as Livia walked the endless aisle. Somewhere an organ played. Someone's perfume was too sweet, cloying. She focused on breathing, on not tripping over the ridiculous train, on the nightmare unreality of it all. Then she saw him. Alessandro De Luca stood at the altar like a prince from a dark fairy tale, all sharp edges and expensive tailoring, his black suit cut to emphasize the dangerous elegance of his build. Early 30s, maybe, handsome in a way that made you think of knives. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble for all the warmth it showed. And his eyes, cold, calculating, the particular shade of brown that looked almost black in certain light, tracked her approach with the focused intensity of a predator watching prey enter the trap. He didn't smile, didn't pretend this was anything other than what it was. Livia's knees almost buckled. Vincent's grip on her elbow tightened. They reached the altar. The priest, some cardinal her father had probably bribed or threatened into officiating, began the ceremony. She didn't hear the words. Couldn't focus past the roaring in her ears, the anic hammer of her heart. This was happening. This was real. In minutes she'd be bound to this man, this stranger, this Livia Carlotta Moretti. The priest's voice cut through her spiral. She blinked, focusing on his expectant face. "Do you take Alessandro Dante de Luca to be your lawfully wedded husband? to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or worse, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death do you part. The cathedral held its breath. Livia looked at Alessandro, really looked at him. He stared back, expressionless, waiting, not even pretending to feel anything. This meant nothing to him. She was a business acquisition, a problem solved, a loose end tied up neat and legal. She could say no, could turn and run, could cause a scene that would echo through every gossip column and crime blog in the country. And then what? Her father's debts wouldn't disappear. DeLuca's need for whatever this gave him wouldn't vanish. They'd just find another way to collect. Messier ways. Permanent ways. I do, Livia whispered. It wasn't a promise. It was a surrender. Alessandro's expression didn't change. The priest turned to him, asked the same questions. His response came quick and emotionless. I do. Then by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. Alessandro stepped closer. Livia's breath caught. He lifted the veil with clinical precision, his fingers never touching her skin. Then he leaned in, and for one horrible second she thought he'd actually... His lips brushed the corner of her mouth. Barely contact at all. A kiss that wasn't a kiss, a gesture for the cameras and nothing more. Smile, he murmured against her cheek, so quiet only she could hear. You're a bride, Mrs. DeLuca. Act like it. He pulled back. Turned to face the congregation, one hand settling at the small of her back in a possessive claim that made her skin crawl. The crowd erupted in applause. Livia smiled. It felt like her face was cracking. The reception happened in a blur of forced champagne toasts and strained conversations. Livia sat at the head table like a doll on display, Alessandro beside her fielding congratulations from an endless parade of men in expensive suits who all had the same predatory gleam in their eyes. His associates, his family. The organization he'd inherited at 25 when his father died under mysterious circumstances that nobody discussed but everyone knew, involved betrayal and bullets. She pushed food around her plate and said nothing. You should eat, Alessandro said at one point, his voice low enough that the nearby guests couldn't hear. It's going to be a long night. Livia's stomach turned. I'm not hungry. I don't care if you're hungry. I care that you look like you're about to faint. He cut a piece of chicken from his own plate, forked it, and held it out to her. Eat. She stared at the offered food, then at him. I'm not a child. No, he agreed. You're my wife, which means your well-being reflects on me. Eat, or I'll have someone bring you something else. Your choice. Everything was a choice that wasn't a choice. Everything was control dressed up as concern. Livia took the fork, ate the chicken just to end the interaction. It tasted like nothing. Alessandro nodded once, satisfied, then returned his attention to the man beside him, someone important in his organization, based on the deference everyone showed him. Hours crawled past. Finally, as the reception wound down and guests began filtering out in clusters of expensive cologne and knowing looks, Alessandro stood and offered her his hand. Time to go. Livia looked at his hand like it was a snake. Where? Home. Not her home. His. She swallowed hard, accepted his hand because refusing would cause a scene, let him guide her through the remaining well-wishers and out to where a black town car waited, engine running. The driver opened the door. Alessandro gestured for her to enter first. She climbed in, the ridiculous dress bunching around her, suddenly very aware of how alone they were about to be. He slid in beside her, the door shut. The driver pulled away from the curb. Silence filled the car, thick, suffocating. Livia stared out the window, watching the city slide past. Her city. Streets she'd walked 1,000 times, now feeling foreign, unreachable, like looking at life through glass. You don't have to be afraid of me, Alessandro said finally. She turned to stare at him. Don't I? I'm not going to hurt you, Livia. You bought me like property. You threatened my family into compliance. I did what was necessary to resolve a situation, he interrupted, his voice maddeningly calm. Your father owed me money he couldn't repay. I offered him a solution that kept everyone alive, he agreed. He had a gun to his head. Metaphorically, yes. Alessandro shifted to face her more fully. Literally, no. Vincent made his choices long before I got involved. Borrowed from the wrong people, lost at gambling, borrowed more to cover the first debt. A pattern. By the time he came to me for help, he was drowning. I threw him a rope. He grabbed it. And I'm the rope. Something flickered in Alessandro's eyes. Not quite emotion, but close. You're my wife. That comes with certain protections, certain expectations. As long as you understand your role, we'll get along fine. My role, Livia repeated flatly. As what exactly? He studied her for a long moment. As someone who makes smart choices, who understands the difference between freedom and survival. He reached out, caught a strand of her hair that had escaped from the elaborate updo, tucked it behind her ear with surprising gentleness. You think you're trapped. You're not. You're protected. There's a difference. His touch made her skin prickle. She pulled away. Protected from what? From the consequences of your father's mistakes. From the people who would have used you to get to him if I hadn't stepped in first. From a world that eats girls like you alive. His hand dropped. You don't see it yet. You will. The car turned onto a private road, passed through massive iron gates that closed behind them with a definitive clang. Trees lined the drive, old growth, carefully maintained, creating a tunnel of shadow. Then the house appeared. Calling it a house was like calling the ocean damp. The DeLuca estate sprawled across manicured grounds, all stone and glass and architectural flecks, lit from within like something from a magazine spread. Beautiful. Intimidating. A fortress disguised as luxury. The car stopped at the entrance. The driver opened Alessandro's door first. He stepped out, then turned to offer Livia his hand again. She ignored it, climbed out on her own, nearly tripping over the damn dress train. Alessandro's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Stubborn. You have no idea. I'm starting to get one. He led her inside. The foyer alone was bigger than her family's entire apartment. Marble floors, a chandelier that probably cost more than a car, artwork on the walls that looked museum quality. Staff appeared from nowhere, taking Alessandro's jacket, offering refreshments, melting back into the shadows when dismissed with a gesture. This is Teresa, Alessandro said, indicating an older woman in a neat black dress. She manages the household. Anything you need, ask her. Teresa smiled, warm and genuine. Welcome, Mrs. DeLuca. If you'd like, I can show you to your rooms. Rooms? Livia looked at Alessandro. The west wing is yours, he said. Bedroom, bathroom, sitting room, private terrace. Everything you need. My rooms are in the east wing. We're married, Livia, not cellmates. You'll have your privacy. She didn't know whether to feel relieved or insulted. How generous. It's practical. He loosened his tie, suddenly looking tired. Teresa will get you settled. I have calls to make. He started to turn away, then paused. One more thing. What? There are guards on the grounds, security at all entry points, cameras covering every approach. Don't misunderstand their purpose. They're here to keep threats out, not to keep you in. His gaze locked with hers. But if you try to leave without my permission, they'll stop you. Gently, but they will stop you. Clear? There it was, the truth beneath the pretty lies about protection and privacy. Crystal, Livia said through her teeth. Alessandro nodded. Good. Sleep well, Mrs. DeLuca. He left. Teresa waited, patient and kind, until Livia's shaking stopped enough to walk. This way, dear. The west wing was a cage made of silk and expensive taste. Livia stood in the center of the bedroom, because calling it a bedroom was inadequate. It was a suite, all cream and gold with furniture that belonged in a palace, and felt the walls closing in despite the ridiculous square footage. A wedding dress hung in the walk-in closet. Her wedding dress, but also not hers at all. Something chosen for her, bought for her, put on her like costume jewelry. She stripped it off with shaking hands, left it pooled on the marble bathroom floor, and stood under a shower so hot it turned her skin pink. When she finally emerged, wrapped in a robe that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe back home, she found that someone had unpacked her things, her pathetically small collection of belongings. A few changes of clothes, some books, photographs of her family that now felt like artifacts from another life, arranged neatly in drawers and shelves that dwarfed them. On the nightstand sat a note in elegant script. If you need anything, ring the bell. Someone will come. T. Livia crumpled it, threw it across the room, then picked it up, smoothed it out, folded it carefully, and tucked it in a drawer because wasting things felt dangerous now, like she couldn't afford even small rebellions. She climbed into the massive bed. The sheets were Egyptian cotton, thread count probably in the thousands. The mattress was perfect. The room temperature was perfect. Everything was perfect, except the fact that she was a prisoner in paradise, married to a man who spoke about her like an asset to be managed. Sleep didn't come. How could it? Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Alessandro's face, that cold, calculating expression that gave nothing away. Heard his voice. You're protected, protected, like a possession. Like something valuable enough to guard, but not valuable enough to actually care about. Hours passed. The house settled around her with the particular creaks and sighs of old money and new construction trying to coexist. Somewhere a clock chimed. 2 a.m. 3. 4. Finally, as pale light started filtering through the curtains, Livia gave up on sleep. She rose, pulled on jeans and a sweater from her unpacked things, and decided to explore her prison. The hallways were quiet, dim with nightlights that cast everything in shadow. She moved carefully, half expecting someone to stop her, but the house seemed deserted. Down one corridor, then another. Past closed doors and artwork she was too anxious to examine. Into what looked like a library, floor-to-ceiling books, leather chairs, a fireplace cold and dark. She was running her fingers along the spines of first editions when footsteps sounded behind her. Couldn't sleep? Livia spun. Alessandro stood in the doorway, dressed down in dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. He looked different without the suit jacket, still dangerous but more human somehow, tired maybe. The carefully controlled mask slipping just enough to show the man beneath. I didn't think anyone else was awake, she said. I don't sleep much. He moved into the room, poured himself a drink from a crystal decanter on the sideboard. Whiskey, amber in the glass. Want one? No. Suit yourself. He took a sip, watching her over the rim. This is my favorite room in the house. My father built this place, but this room, this was mine. He didn't care about books. Thought they were a waste of time. Alessandro's mouth curved, not quite a smile. I learned more from these shelves than I ever learned from him. Livia didn't know what to do with that information. Didn't want to see him as someone who read, who had a favorite room, who was anything other than the monster who'd bought her. Why did you marry me? She asked abruptly. Alessandro's eyebrows rose. Direct? I appreciate that. Answer the question. He studied her for a long moment, then gestured to one of the leather chairs. Sit. I'll tell you. She almost refused, but her curiosity won out. She sat. Alessandro settled into the chair opposite, drink balanced on his knee. My organization, my family's legacy, operates in a world with very specific rules. Power comes from respect. Respect comes from appearing untouchable, invincible. He paused. But I'm 32 years old and unmarried. In my world, that raises questions. Makes people wonder about weaknesses, vulnerabilities, things they can exploit. So you needed a wife, Livia said flatly. For appearances. I needed the right wife, someone with no connections to rival families, no complicated loyalties, no history that could be used against me. He took another sip. Your father's debt gave me an opportunity, a clean transaction. You're beautiful, well-educated, from a respectable family that's fallen on hard times, perfect for my needs. Perfect, she echoed bitterly, like picking out a car. If you want to be angry about it, be angry at your father for putting you in a position where this was the best option, not at me for offering a solution that kept you all alive. You keep saying that, like I should be grateful. You should be realistic. Alessandro leaned forward. Your father owed me $800,000, Livia. Do you know what we do to people who can't pay their debts? I can imagine. No, he said quietly. You can't. Because you've lived a sheltered life where the worst thing that ever happened to you was not getting into your first-choice college or having to work a summer job you hated. You don't know what real consequences look like. Livia's hands clenched. Don't patronize me. I'm not. I'm telling you the truth. He finished his drink, set the glass aside. This marriage protects you, protects your parents, gives you a life of comfort and security. All you have to do is play your part. Be my wife in public. Be cordial in private. Don't embarrass me. Don't try to leave. Follow those simple rules and we'll coexist just fine. And if I don't? His expression hardened. Then you'll learn that I'm patient until I'm not. Generous until generosity becomes liability. He stood. I don't want to punish you, Livia. Don't make me. The threat hung between them, cold and clear. I want to see my parents, she said suddenly. Alessandro paused. Why? Because they're my parents. Because I didn't even get to say goodbye properly. Because... Her voice cracked. She swallowed hard, forced it steady. Because I need to know they're okay. He studied her face, reading something there she didn't want him to see. Then he nodded once. I'll arrange it. Later this week. Today. Later this week, he repeated, steel beneath the calm. When I'm satisfied you understand the parameters of our arrangement. You mean when you're satisfied I'm properly broken in? I mean when you've had time to adjust, to accept reality. He moved toward the door, paused at the threshold. Get some rest, Livia. Tomorrow we have a brunch with several important business associates and their wives. You'll need to be presentable. I'm not a show dog. No, he agreed. You're a DeLuca now. That's significantly more complicated. He left before she could respond. Livia sat in the quiet library, surrounded by books and dying nightlights, and felt something hard and sharp crystallize in her chest. Not acceptance. Never that. But understanding, maybe, of what she was up against, of what this life would demand. She'd been traded like currency, trapped in luxury, told to smile and obey and be grateful for the cage. But Alessandro DeLuca had made one critical mistake. He assumed she'd break. The brunch was exactly as terrible as Livia anticipated. She wore a dress Teresa had laid out, designer, understated, the kind of expensive that whispered instead of shouted, and sat beside Alessandro at a table full of people whose names she immediately forgot and whose conversations revolved around money, power, and carefully coded references to activities she suspected were illegal. The wives were worse than the men. They smiled with sharp teeth, asked invasive questions disguised as friendly interest, and evaluated her like she was livestock at auction. So how did you two meet? One asked, Patricia something, married to one of Alessandro's lieutenants. It was such a surprise when we heard about the wedding. Livia felt Alessandro's hand settle on her thigh beneath the table. A warning. She smiled sweetly. My father introduced us. How traditional. Patricia's smile didn't reach her eyes. And what do your parents do? Various things, Livia said vaguely, because my father's a degenerate gambler who sold me to pay his debts didn't seem like appropriate brunch conversation. Alessandro's fingers tightened slightly. Livia's father is semi-retired. Her mother volunteers with several charities. The conversation moved on. Livia picked at her food and counted the minutes until this nightmare could end. It finally did, 3 hours later. They said their goodbyes, made their promises to get together soon that everyone knew were lies, and climbed back into the town car. The moment the doors closed, Alessandro's carefully pleasant expression vanished. That was adequate, he said. Livia stared at him. Adequate? You didn't embarrass me. You answered questions without revealing anything damaging. You played the part. He loosened his tie. I expected more resistance. Would you have preferred I cause a scene? I would have preferred you understand that resistance is pointless. He turned to look at her fully. You're angry. I get that. But channeling that anger into futile rebellion doesn't help you. It just makes both our lives more difficult. Maybe I don't care about making your life difficult. Then you're not as smart as I thought you were. The words stung more than they should have. Livia turned away, jaw clenched. When can I see my parents? Thursday. I'll have someone drive you. Alone? With security. Non-negotiable. Of course. She nodded stiffly. Fine. They finished the drive in silence. When they arrived back at the estate, Livia headed straight for her wing. She needed space, needed to breathe, needed to... Livia. She stopped, didn't turn around. "What?" "You did well today," Alessandro said quietly. "Better than I expected for someone who doesn't want to be here." She looked back at him then, found him watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Not warm, but not entirely cold either. Something in between, something almost like respect? "Don't confuse compliance with acceptance," she said. His mouth twitched. "I wouldn't dream of it." Thursday came. Livia dressed carefully, jeans, a simple blouse, her own clothes instead of the designer pieces that filled the closet now. A small rebellion, but hers. The driver who took her was different from Alessandro's usual driver. Younger, friendlier. He introduced himself as Marco and actually made conversation during the drive instead of maintaining professional silence. "How long have you worked for Alessandro?" Livia asked. 5 years. Since I was 20. Marco navigated through traffic with easy competence. He's a good boss. Fair. Demanding, but fair. "You're not afraid of him?" Marco laughed. "Everyone's afraid of him a little. But fear and respect aren't the same thing. Mr. DeLuca has both. That's rare." Livia filed that away. Turned her attention to the familiar streets sliding past as they approached her old neighborhood. Her chest tightened. Her parents lived in a modest apartment in a building that had seen better days. Marco parked out front, moved to open her door, but she was already out, moving toward the entrance. "Mrs. DeLuca," Marco called. "I'll be right here." She nodded, climbed the stairs, the elevator had been broken for months, to the 3rd floor. Stood outside the door marked 3C and raised her hand to knock. It opened before she could. Her mother stood there, looking older than she had just days ago, her face lighting up with relief and worry in equal measure. "Livia?" Maria pulled her into a fierce hug. "Oh, baby girl." Livia held on tight, breathing in her mother's familiar scent, lavender and coffee, and felt something in her chest crack. "Mama?" They pulled apart. Maria searched her face with anxious eyes. "Are you okay? Has he—" "I'm fine." Livia stepped inside, the apartment feeling smaller than she remembered. "Where's Papa?" "Bedroom. He's—" Maria's expression clouded. "He's not doing well." Vincent Moretti sat on the edge of the bed, staring at nothing. He looked diminished somehow, smaller. When Livia entered, he glanced up, something like shame flickering across his features. "Livia." "Papa." Awkward silence. Maria bustled into the kitchen, giving them space neither of them wanted. "You look good," Vincent said finally. "That dress, it's nice." "It's not mine. Nothing there is mine." He flinched. "I know you hate me." "I don't hate you." Livia sat in the chair opposite him. "I don't know what I feel about you anymore." "That's fair." He rubbed his face. "For what it's worth, don't." She cut him off. "Don't tell me you're sorry or that you did what you had to or any of the other excuses. Just tell me the truth. Are you too safe? Is the debt really cleared?" "Yes." Vincent nodded. DeLuca kept his word. The debt's gone. The people I owed, they're handled. We're safe. Good. More silence. Maria returned with coffee in chipped mugs, and they sat around the small kitchen table making stilted conversation about nothing that mattered. The weather, neighborhood gossip, carefully avoiding the elephant in the room. Finally, Livia couldn't take it anymore. "I should go." "Already?" Maria's face fell. "You just got here." "I know, but—" She couldn't finish. Couldn't explain that being here hurt, that seeing them safe in their small apartment while she was trapped in luxury made everything worse somehow. She hugged her mother goodbye, let her father grip her hand and mumble something she didn't quite catch. Then she left, descended the stairs, emerged into sunlight that felt too bright. Marco looked up from his phone. "Everything okay, Mrs. DeLuca?" "Fine." She climbed into the car. "Let's go." They were halfway back when her phone rang. Alessandro's name on the screen. She answered. "Yes?" "How was the visit?" "Fine," she repeated, because what else could she say? "Good. I'll be late tonight. Business dinner. Don't wait up." He hung up before she could respond. Not that she had anything to say anyway. Back at the estate, Livia wandered the grounds, restless. The property was extensive, Gardens, a pool, tennis courts, all impeccably maintained. Beautiful. Empty. She walked until her feet hurt, until the sun started setting, until she couldn't ignore the truth anymore. This was her life now. This beautiful, lonely cage. She could accept it, or she could fight it. The question was, how much fight did she actually have? Look, days became weeks. Livia settled into a routine that felt like quicksand, easy to sink into, hard to escape. Mornings alone. Afternoons with Teresa learning the household routines she'd supposedly need to know as Mrs. DeLuca. Evenings either alone while Alessandro worked, or beside him at dinners and events where she smiled and said the right things and felt herself disappearing a little more each time. She tested the boundaries. Small things at first. Refusing to wear a dress, Alessandro suggested. Skipping a charity luncheon claiming a headache. Going for walks on the grounds without telling anyone. No one stopped her. No one punished her. But she felt the watchful eyes of security, the careful monitoring disguised as concern. The boundaries were invisible but absolute. Then one night, 3 weeks into the marriage, Alessandro came home early. Livia was in the library, it had become her refuge, when he appeared in the doorway. "We need to talk," he said. She marked her page, set the book aside. "About what?" "About you trying to leave." Her blood went cold. "I haven't—" "Yes, you have." He moved into the room. "You tested the perimeter this afternoon, walked to the east gate, examined the lock, checked for camera blind spots." Shit. She'd thought she'd been subtle. "I was just walking," she tried. "Don't lie to me, Livia. I respect your intelligence too much for that." Alessandro sat across from her. "I told you from the beginning you're not a prisoner, but you're also not free to come and go without my knowledge. Those rules haven't changed." "What if I want them to change?" "Then you'll be disappointed." He leaned forward. "I know this isn't what you wanted. I know you feel trapped. But running isn't going to solve your problems. It's only going to create new ones. Worse ones." "You don't know what I feel," Livia said hotly. "You don't know anything about me." I know you're smart, stubborn, and scared," Alessandro said quietly. "I know you read Austen and Bronte when you think no one's watching. I know you take your coffee black, but add honey to your tea. I know you're nicer to the staff than you are to me because they didn't choose this for you." His eyes locked with hers. "I pay attention, Livia, more than you think." The observation felt invasive, intimate, like he'd been studying her while she thought she was invisible. "Then you should know I can't live like this forever," she said. "Like what? In comfort, in safety. Like property, like something owned." Something shifted in Alessandro's expression. "Is that really what you think? That I own you? Don't you?" He was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood, moved to the window, stared out at the darkened grounds. "My father used to say that power is about control, about making people do what you want through fear or force." His reflection in the glass looked distant. He was wrong. Real power is about choices, about giving people options and letting them pick the one that serves you both. "That's not what you did with me." "No," he admitted, "it's not. But maybe—" He turned to face her. "Maybe we can find a different arrangement, one where you feel less like property and more like a partner." Livia's heart stuttered. "What does that mean?" "It means tell me what you need. What would make this bearable for you? Within reason," he added quickly. "I'm not letting you go, but I'm willing to negotiate better terms." She stared at him, searching for the trap. But he looked almost sincere. "I want freedom to come and go. Not running away, just living. Going to the bookstore, meeting a friend for coffee. Normal things. With security. Of course with security, I'm not stupid." She stood, moving closer. "I want to see my parents whenever I want, not just when you permit it. I want—" She hesitated. "I want to go back to school, finish my degree." Alessandro's eyebrows rose. "You were in school?" "Architecture. I had 1 semester left when Papa—" "She didn't finish." He nodded slowly. "I can arrange that. Online courses to finish your degree. Maybe limited in-person attendance with security." Hope fluttered, dangerous and bright. "Really?" "On one condition." His gaze intensified. You stop trying to escape. You stop testing the boundaries. You give us, a real chance. Not love. I'm not asking for that, but cooperation, partnership, like I said. Livia's mind raced. It wasn't freedom, but it was more than she had. And maybe, just maybe, it was enough to build on. Okay, she heard herself say. Deal. Alessandro studied her face, then extended his hand. Partners, then. She looked at his offered hand, took it. His grip was firm, warm, sending an unexpected jolt through her. Partners? She echoed. And somewhere in the back of her mind, a small voice whispered that she'd just made a different kind of deal with the devil. One potentially more dangerous than the first. But for the first time since the wedding, she felt something other than despair. She felt like maybe, just maybe, she could survive this after all. The deal changed things, but not in the ways Livia expected. Alessandro kept his word. Within a week, she had access to her university's online portal, her courses reinstated, her professors notified of her return. The relief of having something that was hers, something she could control, felt like oxygen after drowning. But the partnership he'd proposed came with complications she hadn't anticipated. He started joining her for breakfast. Not every morning, but enough that she began expecting it. They'd sit across from each other at the small table in the sunroom, not the formal dining room with its ridiculous chandelier, and talk. Actual conversations about her classes, about the books she was reading, about nothing particularly important, but somehow significant anyway. You're studying the Pantheon today, Alessandro said one morning, glancing at her open textbook. He'd come in still dressed from whatever late-night meeting he'd had, tie loosened, looking tired but alert. Livia looked up, surprised. You know architecture? I know buildings. Had to, given the family business. He poured himself coffee, added sugar. Construction, real estate, historical preservation. All useful covers for less legitimate operations. The casual admission should have disturbed her. Instead, she found herself curious. You ever actually care about the buildings, or is it all just money laundering? His mouth curved slightly. Both. The Baroque church we restored in the North District? That was personal. My grandmother loved that place. Spent half her childhood there before the war damaged it. He took a sip. The office complex downtown? Pure profit. And the difference matters to you? Everything matters when it's yours to protect. He set down his cup. That's something you'll understand once you finish your degree. Architecture isn't just about design, it's about legacy. What you leave behind. Livia studied his face, trying to reconcile this man, who talked about grandmothers and legacy, with the one who'd bought her like merchandise. What do you want your legacy to be? Alessandro was quiet for a moment. Something other than what my father left me. Before she could ask what he meant, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, expression shuddering. I have to go. There's a situation. What kind of situation? The kind you don't need to worry about. He stood, hesitated, then said, I'll be gone most of the day. Marco will drive you to campus if you want to use the library. I thought classes were online only. They are. But you mentioned wanting normal things. Libraries are normal. He was already moving toward the door. Security goes with you. Non-negotiable. I know the rules, Alessandro. He paused at the threshold, looked back. Do you? Then he was gone, leaving her with half-finished coffee and the uncomfortable realization that she was starting to look forward to their morning conversations. That couldn't be good. Teresa appeared in the doorway minutes later, her kind face creased with concern. Will you be going out today, Mrs. DeLuca? Livia closed her textbook. Yes, the university library. Is Marco available? Of course. I'll let him know. Teresa moved to clear the breakfast dishes, then paused. May I say something? You're going to anyway. A small smile. Mr. DeLuca is different with you. Lighter, maybe? I've worked for this family for 15 years, and I've never seen him softer. He's not soft, Livia said flatly. No, but he's trying to be. For you. Teresa collected the plates. That's worth something, I think. After she left, Livia sat in the sunroom and stared out at the manicured gardens and tried not to think about what Teresa's observation meant. Tried not to acknowledge the small warmth that bloomed in her chest at the idea that maybe Alessandro was trying, that maybe this arrangement could become something almost bearable. She was setting herself up for disappointment. She knew it. But knowing didn't stop the hope from taking root. The library trip helped. Being on campus, even with Marco and another security guard trailing at a discreet distance, felt like reclaiming a piece of herself. She spent 3 hours in the architecture section, gathering books, taking notes, letting the familiar rhythm of research soothe her frayed nerves. She was heading back to the car when she saw her. Emma Chen stood near the student union, laughing at something on her phone. Emma, her roommate from freshman year, her study partner, her friend before everything fell apart, and Livia had to drop out to help with her father's mounting problems. Their eyes met. Emma's face lit up. "Livia? Oh my God, Livia!" Before Livia could think about whether this was a good idea, Emma was hugging her, and she was hugging back, and it felt like coming home. "Where have you been?" Emma pulled back, holding her at arm's length. "You just disappeared. I tried calling, but your number was disconnected, and nobody knew." She stopped, noticing Marco hovering nearby. "Who's that?" "Security," Livia said, because what else could she say? Emma's eyebrows shot up. "Security? What, are you famous now or something?" "It's complicated." "Okay, now you have to tell me everything." Emma linked their arms. "Coffee. Now. I have an hour before my next class. And you're going to explain why you have a bodyguard and why you're wearing clothes that cost more than my tuition." They ended up at the campus cafe. Marco took a table nearby, close enough to intervene but far enough to give the illusion of privacy. The other guards stayed outside. Emma ordered an elaborate latte. Livia got black coffee and tried to figure out how to explain her life. "So," Emma said, settling into her chair, "start talking." "I got married." Emma choked on her drink. "You what?" "Married 3 weeks ago." "To who? When did you even have time to date? You dropped out in the middle of the semester and then just vanished, and now you're married?" Emma leaned forward. "Okay, either this is the greatest love story ever, or something really sketchy is happening." "Definitely the second one." "Livia." So she told her. Not everything, not the threats, not the specifics of Alessandro's business, but enough. The debt, the arrangement, the wedding that wasn't really a wedding. Emma's face cycled through shock, anger, and horror. "That's insane. That's literally insane. Your father sold you?" "He was desperate." "That's not an excuse." Emma gripped her hand across the table. "Are you okay? Is this guy hurting you? Because we can call someone, we can—" "I'm fine," Livia interrupted. "I'm safe. It's not what you think." "It's exactly what I think. You were forced into a marriage with a stranger." "He's not a stranger anymore." The words came out before she could stop them. Emma stared at her. "What does that mean?" "Nothing. Just that we're figuring it out. He's not what I expected." Livia pulled her hand back, wrapped it around her coffee cup. "He's letting me finish my degree. I have freedom, mostly. It could be worse. It could also be better. Like, you could not be married to someone who bought you." "Emma, no, I'm serious. This is messed up, Liv. And if you need help—" "I don't." Livia met her friend's eyes. "Sounds. But I'm handling it. I promise." Emma didn't look convinced, but she let it drop. They spent the rest of the hour catching up on safer topics, classes, mutual friends, campus gossip. It felt normal. Achingly normal. Like the life Livia used to have was just a reach away instead of permanently out of grasp. When they finally had to leave, Emma hugged her again. "Stay in touch this time, okay? I mean it. I don't care if your husband is some controlling—" "He's not controlling," Livia said, then realized how defensive she sounded. "I mean, he is, but not like that. It's different." Emma gave her a look that said they'd definitely be talking about this later. "Text me. Promise." "Promise." The drive back was quiet. Marco didn't ask about the conversation, which Livia appreciated, but when they pulled up to the estate, he said, "It's good you have friends, Mrs. DeLuca. Mr. DeLuca wants you to be happy." "Does he?" "Yes." Marco's voice was certain. "He's not always good at showing it, but he does." Livia didn't know what to do with that either. Alessandro came home late that night. Livia was in the library when she heard his footsteps in the hall. He appeared in the doorway, and she immediately knew something was wrong. Blood spattered his white shirt. His knuckles were split. And his eyes looked empty in a way that made her stomach drop. What happened? The question came out before she could think better of it. Alessandro glanced down at himself, as if just noticing the blood. Business? That's not business, that's... She stood up. Are you hurt? No? Then whose blood is that? He didn't answer, just moved to the sideboard, poured himself a drink, downed it, poured another. Livia approached carefully, like he was a wounded animal that might bolt. Alessandro. I had to handle a problem. His voice was flat. Someone thought they could steal from me, skim money off the top, small amounts. Thought I wouldn't notice. And? And I noticed. He drank again. I gave him a choice. Return what he stole and leave the city or face consequences. What did he choose? Alessandro's laugh was bitter. He chose to lie, to insist he was innocent, to insult my intelligence. He set down the glass. So I chose for him. The implication hung between them. Livia's mouth went dry. You killed him. I did what was necessary to maintain order, to show everyone else what happens when you betray me. He finally looked at her fully. This is who I am, Livia. This is the world you're part of now. Not pretty architecture and morning coffee. Blood, violence, necessary evils. She should have been terrified, should have run, but standing there looking at him, at the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight he carried, she felt something else. Something complicated and unwanted. You hate it, she said quietly. He blinked. What? You hate it. The violence, the necessity of it. You do it because you have to, because it's expected, because it's how this world works. But you hate it. Don't presume to know what I feel. Then tell me I'm wrong. Alessandro stared at her for a long moment. Then he turned away. You should go to bed. Not until you clean up. You'll get blood on everything. I'm not your responsibility. We're partners, remember? You said so yourself. She moved toward the door. Come on. Bathroom. I'll help. I don't need help. Fine. Then I'll watch while you do it yourself. He made a frustrated noise but followed her. They ended up in his bathroom. She'd never been in his wing before. It was similar to hers but darker, more masculine, all black marble and chrome. Livia gestured to the sink. Sit. I can wash my own hands. Sit. To her surprise, he did. She ran warm water, found soap, and carefully cleaned the blood from his knuckles. The split skin would bruise, maybe scar. She worked gently, aware of his eyes on her face. Why are you doing this? He asked quietly. Because someone should. Teresa works for you. She hesitated. I'm your wife. That means something, even if we didn't choose it. His hand caught her wrist. Not hard, but firm enough to stop her movements. You're not afraid of me. Should I be? Most people are. I'm not most people. She met his gaze. And you're not going to hurt me. You had plenty of chances and didn't. You sound very certain. I am. Something shifted in his expression. You saw me today, at the library, with your friend. Not a question. She should have known he'd have eyes everywhere. Marco reported back. It's his job. Alessandro released her wrist. But I'm glad you went. That you have someone to talk to. Even though I probably told her things I shouldn't have. Even though. He flexed his fingers, testing the cleaned knuckles. What did you tell her? That I got married. That it's complicated. That you're not what I expected. And what did you expect? A monster. And now? Livia dried his hands with a towel, buying time. Now I think you're a man doing monstrous things because that's what you were taught, what you inherited. But underneath, she set down the towel. Underneath, you're just trying to survive your legacy, like I'm trying to survive mine. Alessandro stood. They were close now, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from him, smell his cologne mixed with copper and whiskey. You're dangerous, Livia. Why? Because you make me want things I can't afford to want. Her heart kicked. Like what? Like this. He cupped her face with one hand, thumb brushing her cheekbone. Like someone who sees me as more than what I do, who doesn't flinch when I come home covered in someone else's blood. I did flinch, she whispered, but you didn't run. I'm tired of running. His other hand came up, framing her face. If I kiss you, it changes things. Things are already changed. Not like this. Livia's breath caught. She should pull away, should maintain the careful distance they'd established, should remember that this was supposed to be business, partnership, survival, not whatever was crackling between them now. But she didn't pull away. Alessandro kissed her. Not like at the wedding, not for show, not clinical, not meaningless. This was real, raw. His mouth moved against hers with a hunger that sparked something molten in her core. She responded without thinking, hands fisting in his bloody shirt, pulling him closer. He made a rough sound against her mouth, one hand sliding into her hair, the other curving around her waist. The kiss deepened, turned desperate. Weeks of tension and denial and forced proximity combusting into something neither could control. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Alessandro rested his forehead against hers. This is a bad idea. Terrible, Livia agreed. We should stop. Probably. Neither moved. Then his phone buzzed. The spell shattered. Alessandro stepped back, pulled out his phone, read whatever message had come through. His expression closed. I have to go. Now? Now. He was already moving toward the door, then paused, looked back. This conversation isn't over. I know. He left. Livia stood in his bathroom, fingers touching her lips, and tried to process what had just happened. She'd kissed Alessandro De Luca, had wanted to kiss him, had felt something real and terrifying and completely inadvisable. This was supposed to be survival, partnership, a cage she was learning to tolerate. It wasn't supposed to feel like want. The next few days were strange. Alessandro became scarce, gone early, and back late. Their morning conversations replaced by brief texts and past messages through Teresa. Livia told herself it was fine. That space was good. That the kiss had been a mistake fueled by adrenaline and proximity. She almost believed it. She threw herself into her coursework, finished 2 major assignments, started sketching again, something she hadn't done since before the wedding. The designs that emerged were darker than her usual work. All sharp angles and defensive structures, fortresses disguised as homes. Emma texted daily. Livia responded when she could, carefully editing her words, omitting anything that might cause alarm. It was nice having a friend again, even if the friendship existed mostly through screens now. On the 4th day of Alessandro's absence, Teresa found her in the library. Mrs. De Luca, there's a delivery for you. Livia looked up from her sketchbook. I didn't order anything. It's from Mr. De Luca. Curious, she followed Teresa to the entrance hall. A long white box sat on the marble table, tied with black ribbon. Inside, she found 24 white roses and a note in Alessandro's angular handwriting, for tolerating a monster. Olivia stared at the flowers, something warm and dangerous blooming in her chest. He'd remembered. That first conversation in the library, when she'd said she expected a monster. He'd remembered. They're beautiful, Teresa said softly. They're an apology. Maybe they're both. That night, Alessandro came home at a reasonable hour. Livia heard his car, heard him speaking with someone in the entrance hall, heard footsteps approaching the library. She didn't look up from her book when he entered. You got the flowers, he said. I did. Thank you. I'm sorry I've been absent. You don't owe me explanations. Livia. He moved closer. Look at me. She did. He looked tired but less haunted than the last time she'd seen him. The split knuckles were healing. I needed space, he said. After the other night, after we... I know, but I don't want you to think I regret it. Her heart stuttered. You don't? No, I just needed to figure out what it meant, what I wanted it to mean. He sat across from her. I've spent my entire adult life avoiding entanglements, keeping distance. It's safer that way. Cleaner. And now? Now I have a wife who cleans blood from my hands and doesn't run when she sees who I really am. His eyes locked with hers. Now I'm realizing that safe and clean might not be what I actually want. Livia set down her book. What do you want? Honestly, I'm still figuring that out. But I know it involves you. More of you. Not just as my wife in name, but he trailed off. Tell me if I'm alone in this. You're not, she admitted. I wish you were. This would be easier if I could just hate you. But you don't. No, I don't. Alessandro exhaled slowly. So what do we do? I don't know. This wasn't supposed to happen. Nothing about us was supposed to happen. He leaned forward. But it did. And I'm tired of pretending it doesn't matter. It scares me, Livia said quietly. Feeling things for you, wanting things I shouldn't want. You think you're alone in that? I think you're better at hiding it. His mouth curved slightly. Practice. I've had a lot of practice. They sat in the library, something fragile and new building between them. Not love. Neither was ready for that word. But want, maybe. Possibility. The beginning of something that could be real if they were brave enough to let it. Have dinner with me tomorrow, Alessandro said. Not here. Out. Somewhere normal. You want to take me on a date? I want to take my wife on a date. Yes. Livia felt herself smile. Okay. Okay? He sounded surprised. Okay, but nowhere too fancy. I'm tired of playing dress-up for your associates. How about the Italian place in the North District? The one with the terrible wine and excellent pasta? You know a place with terrible wine. I know a lot of things. He stood, offered his hand. Walk with me? She took it. Let him pull her up. They walked the grounds in the fading light, talking about nothing important. Her classes, his headache of a business deal, the gardener's questionable choice of roses, but everything feeling significant anyway. When they finally came back inside, Alessandro walked her to her wing, stopped outside her door. Thank you, he said. For what? For giving this a chance, for not running when you could have, for... He touched her face gently. For seeing me. Then he kissed her, soft this time, sweet, a promise instead of a demand. When he pulled back, Livia's pulse was racing. Good night, Alessandro. Good night, Livia. She watched him walk away, disappearing into the east wing, and touched her lips where the warmth of his kiss still lingered. This was dangerous, reckless, completely inadvisable. She couldn't wait for their date tomorrow. The restaurant was exactly as Alessandro described. Small, family-owned, tucked into a neighborhood that clearly knew who he was based on the respect the owner showed when they arrived. But it was also warm, genuine, the kind of place where the food mattered more than appearances. They sat in a corner booth. Alessandro ordered in flawless Italian. The owner brought wine, better than what Alessandro claimed they usually served, and disappeared with a knowing smile. You come here often, Livia observed. Used to, before my father died. He hated this place. Said it was beneath us. Alessandro poured the wine, which meant I loved it. Rebellion through carbohydrates. Something like that. He raised his glass. To terrible wine and excellent company. She clinked her glass against his. You're in a good mood. Am I not allowed to be? I didn't say that. It's just different. You're different. People contain multitudes, Livia. Even monsters. But he was smiling when he said it. The food came. They ate and talked, the conversation flowing easier than it ever had before. He asked about her architecture projects. She asked about the legitimate parts of his business. They argued about movies, discovered a shared love of old noir films, made plans to watch one together. It felt normal, like a real date with a real couple who'd chosen each other. Halfway through the meal, Livia's phone buzzed. She ignored it. It buzzed again, and again. Alessandro frowned. You should check that. She pulled out her phone. 3 texts from Emma, each more frantic than the last. Liv, call me. Seriously, call me right now. Livia, call me. It's about your dad. Her blood went cold. I have to make a call. Go. She stepped outside, dialed Emma's number. Her friend picked up immediately. Oh, thank God. Liv, I'm so sorry. I didn't know if I should tell you, but I thought you should know. Emma, slow down. What about my dad? He's in the hospital. My mom works in the ER, and she saw him come in about an hour ago. He was beaten up pretty bad. The world tilted. What? I don't know details, but Liv, it looked like someone worked him over on purpose. Your mom was with him. She was hysterical. I thought you should know. Livia's hand clenched around the phone. Which hospital? Emma told her. Livia hung up, turned back to the restaurant. Alessandro was already standing, money on the table, reading something in her expression. What happened? My father's in the hospital. Someone hurt him. His face went hard. Let's go. They didn't speak on the drive. Alessandro made calls in clipped Italian while Livia stared out the window and tried not to think about all the ways this could be connected to her. To him. To the life she'd been pulled into. The hospital was chaos. Livia found her mother in the waiting area, mascara streaked down her face, hands shaking. Mama. Maria looked up, relief and fear warring in her expression. Livia, oh baby. They held each other. Alessandro hung back, phone still pressed to his ear, his expression carved from ice. What happened? Livia asked. Men came to the apartment. 3 of them, they said. Maria's voice broke. They said Vincent owed someone money, that DeLuca's payment didn't cover everything. They wanted more. Livia's stomach dropped. She turned to look at Alessandro. He was watching her, his expression unreadable. That's not possible, he said into the phone. Then to someone else, find out who sent those men. I want names. Now. He hung up, approached them. Mrs. Moretti, I promise you your husband's debt to me was cleared completely. Someone is lying. Then who hurt him? Maria demanded. I'm going to find out. A doctor emerged from the trauma bay. Family of Vincent Moretti? They all moved forward. The doctor looked exhausted. He has 2 broken ribs, a concussion, and significant bruising. We're keeping him overnight for observation, but he should recover. Can I see him? Maria asked. Yes, but only 1 visitor at a time for now. Maria went in. Livia started to follow, but Alessandro caught her arm. Let me make some calls first. Find out what's really happening. You think this is connected to you? I think someone is using your family to send me a message. His jaw clenched. And when I find out who, they're going to regret it. He stepped away, already dialing. Livia watched him pace the hallway, his voice low and dangerous, and felt something crystallize inside her. This was her life now. Violence hiding behind legitimate facades, threats against the people she loved, a constant awareness that her choices had consequences that rippled outward. But Alessandro was handling it, protecting them. Not because he had to, the original debt was paid, but because they were connected to her now, because she mattered to him. That should have scared her. Instead, it made her feel something dangerously close to safe. When Maria finally emerged from Vincent's room, her face was pale but composed. She gripped Livia's hands. He wants to see you. Livia nodded, squeezed back, and slipped through the door. The fluorescent lights made everything too bright, too sterile. Vincent lay propped against pillows, his face a patchwork of purple and yellow bruises, one eye swollen nearly shut. He looked smaller than she remembered, fragile. Papa? He tried to smile, winced instead. Should have known you'd come. What happened? And don't lie to me. She pulled a chair close, sat. Who were those men? Vincent's good eye slid away from hers. Doesn't matter. It matters to me. Livia, tell me the truth, Papa. For once in your life, just tell me the truth. He was quiet for a long time, then barely audible. Castellano's people. The name meant nothing to her. Who? Rival family, enemy of DeLuca's organization. Vincent's hands clenched the blanket. I owed them too, from before. Different debt, different game. When I made the deal with DeLuca, I thought they'd forget. That they wouldn't care about a few thousand when DeLuca took care of the big one. Livia's stomach twisted. How much do you owe them? 30,000, maybe more with interest. Papa, you promised. You said the debt was cleared. You said we were safe. I thought we were. His voice cracked. I thought marrying you off would be enough. That it would end. But it never ends, Livia. Never. She wanted to scream, to shake him, to demand how he could keep doing this, keep gambling, keep lying, keep destroying everything he touched. But looking at him now, broken and ashamed and still making excuses, she just felt tired. Alessandro will handle it, she said finally. You can't tell him. Castellano, he's dangerous. If DeLuca gets involved, it'll start a war. Then maybe it starts a war. People will die. People are already dying, Papa. You're just too much of a coward to admit you caused it. She stood. I'm telling Alessandro, and you're going to stop gambling, stop borrowing, stop ruining lives. You don't understand? No, you don't understand. I married him to save you, to save this family, and you're still out there making the same mistakes that got us here in the first place. Her voice shook. I'm done protecting you from the consequences of your choices. She left before he could respond. Found Alessandro in the hallway, still on the phone, his expression carved from granite. When he saw her face, he ended the call. What did he say? She told him. Everything. Watched his expression grow colder with each word until she was looking at the man who'd come home covered in blood, the one who handled problems with violence and finality. Castellano, he said quietly. You know him? I know of him. Small operation. Thinks he's bigger than he is. We've had friction. Alessandro pulled out his phone again. This is a provocation, an attempt to undermine me by going after my wife's family. What are you going to do? His eyes met hers. What I have to. Which means you don't need to know the details. He touched her face briefly. Go sit with your mother. I'll handle this. Alessandro, trust me. The words hung between them. Trust. Such a simple word for something so complicated. But looking at him now, seeing the cold fury in his eyes mixed with something almost protective, Livia realized she did trust him. Despite everything. Despite the violence and the blood and the cage she lived in, she trusted him to do what was necessary. Okay, she whispered. He kissed her forehead. I'll be back. Then he was gone, and Livia was left standing in a hospital hallway, wondering when she'd started believing that a monster could keep her safe. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of hospital visits and tense silences. Vincent was released with pain medication and strict orders to rest. Maria fussed over him with the desperate energy of someone trying to fix the unfixable. Livia went through the motions, bringing food, arranging home care, saying the right things while feeling nothing but a hollow ache. Alessandro disappeared. No calls, no texts, just silence and the certain knowledge that somewhere in the city, violence was being negotiated or enacted in her name. On the third day, he returned. Livia was in the library when she heard his car. She set down her book and waited, heart pounding, footsteps in the hall, the door opening. Then Alessandro stood there, looking exhausted but unharmed, still wearing yesterday's clothes. It's done, he said. What's done? Castellano won't be bothering your family again. The debt is cleared, permanently. Livia's breath caught. How? I made him an offer he couldn't refuse. Alessandro moved to the sideboard, poured whiskey. His operation was smaller than he claimed, weaker. He needed money more than he needed revenge, so I bought the debt, paid it in full. Then I made it clear that any further contact with the Morettis would be considered an act of war. And he agreed? He's a businessman before he's a thug. He took the money. Alessandro drank. Your father is safe, your mother is safe. It's over. Relief crashed through her, so intense it made her dizzy. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. He set down the glass. I need you to see something. What? Something that will help you understand who I am, what I do, what your life is really going to look like if we keep doing this. His expression was unreadable. You can say no. I won't force you, but I think you need to see it. Fear prickled along her spine. See what? The truth. 20 minutes later, they were in the town car, Marco driving, heading into a part of the city Livia had never visited. Industrial, abandoned, the kind of place where streetlights flickered and nobody asked questions. They pulled up to a warehouse. Alessandro helped her out of the car, his hand warm and steady on her elbow. Last chance to change your mind. I'm not changing my mind. Stubborn, he muttered, but there was something almost fond in his voice. Inside the warehouse was exactly what she'd expected. Concrete floors, high ceilings, the smell of metal and old fear. But what made her breath catch were the men standing in a loose circle around a figure tied to a chair. The man in the chair was bloodied, beaten, his face barely recognizable, but his eyes were open, aware, terrified. "This," Alessandro said quietly, "is one of the men who hurt your father. There were 3. The other 2 are in a different location. But this one," he moved closer to the bound man, "this one was the leader, the one who broke your father's ribs." The man's eyes widened with recognition, with fear. He tried to speak through broken teeth. "Please, quiet." Alessandro's voice could have cut glass. He turned to Livia. "I'm going to give you a choice, a real one. You can walk away right now. Go back to the car. Pretend this never happened, or you can stay. Watch. Understand exactly what kind of man you married." Livia's heart hammered against her ribs. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to get out, to preserve whatever innocence she had left. But she thought about her father's broken face, her mother's tears, the endless cycle of violence that had brought her here. "I'm staying," she said. Something flickered in Alessandro's eyes. Surprise, maybe, or respect. "Then stay. But don't look away. If you're going to be part of this world, you need to see all of it." He turned back to the bound man. "You made a mistake. You went after someone under my protection, hurt someone I care about. Do you understand what that means?" The man whimpered. "It means I can't let it go, can't show mercy. Because if I do, every 2-bit thug in this city will think they can come after mine without consequences." Alessandro's voice was matter-of-fact, clinical. "So this is what happens. This is the example." He pulled a gun from inside his jacket. The man in the chair started screaming, begging, promising things he couldn't deliver. Livia's vision tunneled. This was real. This was happening. Alessandro was going to kill this man right in front of her, and she couldn't. "Look at me." Alessandro's voice cut through her panic. She met his eyes. "You don't have to watch the actual moment, but you need to understand what it costs, what I'm willing to do to keep you safe." "Please," the bound man sobbed. "Please, I didn't know she was yours. I swear, I didn't." "I know," Alessandro said, almost gently. "But it doesn't matter." The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space. Livia flinched, eyes squeezing shut involuntarily. When she opened them, the man was slumped in the chair, blood pooling beneath him, and Alessandro was tucking the gun back into his jacket like he'd just finished signing paperwork. "Clean this up," he told his men. Then to Livia, "Come on." She couldn't move, couldn't process what she'd just witnessed. Her ears rang, her hands shook. Alessandro took her elbow again, guided her toward the exit. "Breathe, Livia. You killed him." "Yes. Just like that. Just like that." They reached the car. He opened her door. "Get in." She did, moving on autopilot. He slid in beside her. Marco pulled away from the warehouse without a word, like he'd done this 1,000 times before. Probably had. The silence in the car was suffocating. Livia stared at her hands, trying to reconcile the man who'd kissed her in the library with the one who'd just executed someone without hesitation, trying to understand how both could exist in the same person. "You're in shock," Alessandro said finally. "That's normal." "Normal." The word came out flat. "There's nothing normal about what just happened." "In my world there is." "Then your world is insane." "Yes." He didn't argue. "But it's the world you're part of now. The world I needed you to see before this goes any further." "Why?" She finally looked at him. "Why did you need me to see that?" "Because I'm tired of you thinking I'm something I'm not. Tired of you looking at me like I might be redeemable." His voice was rough. "I'm not a good man, Livia. I do terrible things for necessary reasons. And if you're going to stay, if this is going to be real, you need to know exactly who you're choosing. You gave me a choice back there, to leave." "I did." "But you knew I wouldn't take it." Alessandro's jaw tightened. "I hoped you wouldn't." "You wanted me to see you kill someone. You wanted me to witness that and stay anyway." The realization bloomed, strange and devastating. "You're testing me." "I'm being honest with you, finally." He turned to face her fully. "I've spent weeks hiding this part of myself, pretending to be civilized, giving you flowers and taking you to dinner like we're normal people with normal problems. But we're not. And I needed you to see that before you decided if this He gestured between them. Is something you actually want? Livia's mind raced. She should be horrified, should demand he take her somewhere safe, somewhere far away from guns and warehouses and casual murder, should run back to her parents' apartment and find a way to annul this nightmare marriage. But the man in that chair had hurt her father, had broken his ribs and laughed about it, and Alessandro had made sure it would never happen again, had protected her family with brutal efficiency. The other two men, she heard herself say, the ones in different locations, what happened to them? Alessandro studied her face. Do you really want to know? Yes? One is in the hospital. He'll live, but he won't forget. The other, he paused. The other didn't make it. You killed him too. No, Dante did. My lieutenant. I gave the order, but I didn't pull the trigger. His voice was flat. Does the distinction matter? I don't know. And she didn't. Nothing made sense anymore. I should hate you for this. You should. But I don't. The admission felt like stepping off a cliff. I should be terrified, disgusted, should want nothing to do with you, but all I can think is that my father is safe now. My mother doesn't have to be afraid. And that's because of you. That's because I'm a monster who knows how to handle other monsters. Maybe. She reached out, touched his face. He went very still under her hand. Or maybe you're just a man doing what he thinks is necessary in an impossible situation. Don't make me into something I'm not, Livia. I'm not. I'm seeing you exactly as you are. Her thumb brushed his cheekbone. And I'm still here. Alessandro caught her hand, pressed it harder against his face. You're going to regret this. Probably. I'm going to disappoint you, hurt you, do things that make you wish you'd run when you had the chance. I know. Then why are you still looking at me like that? Like what? Like I'm worth saving. Livia's throat tightened. Maybe because I think you are. Or maybe because I'm just as broken as you are, and this is the only thing that makes sense anymore. He pulled her across the seat into his lap and kissed her hard. She responded with equal desperation, fingers tangling in his hair, tasting whiskey and violence and something almost like redemption. The kiss was nothing like the sweet ones they'd shared before. This was raw, claiming, a mutual acknowledgement that they'd crossed a line and there was no going back. When they finally broke apart, Alessandro rested his forehead against hers, breathing hard. You're insane. Probably. We're both going to hell for this. At least we'll have company. He laughed, short and rough. What am I going to do with you? I have some ideas. His eyes darkened. Livia. Alessandro. She kissed him again, softer this time. Take me home. Home. The word felt strange on her tongue, but the estate was home now, whether she'd chosen it or not. And the man holding her, dangerous, violent, impossibly complicated, was hers. However dysfunctional that made them. They spent the rest of the drive tangled together, kissing like teenagers, Marco politely ignoring them from the front seat. When they finally pulled up to the estate, Alessandro helped her out, his hand never leaving hers. Inside, they made it as far as the entrance hall before he pushed her against the wall, hands framing her face, mouth finding hers again. She responded eagerly, pulling him closer, wanting to erase the space between them. Your wing or mine, he murmured against her lips. Does it matter? No. He scooped her up. She made an undignified squeak and carried her toward the east wing. His wing, his bedroom. He set her down just inside the door, suddenly hesitant. We don't have to... I know. She started unbuttoning his shirt. But I want to. Livia, stop talking. So he did. Let her push the shirt off his shoulders, her fingers tracing the scars she found there. Evidence of a violent life written on his skin. He pulled her sweater over her head, pausing to just look at her, something unreadable in his expression. What? She whispered. You're beautiful. I should have told you that before. You bought me for my appearance. I figured you noticed. I bought you for strategic reasons. The fact that you're beautiful was just a bonus. His hand settled on her waist. But this, you standing here, choosing this, choosing me after everything you saw tonight, that's something else entirely. She kissed him, instead of responding. Let her actions speak louder than words. They shed the rest of their clothes in a tangle of limbs in desperation, falling onto his bed in a mess of want and need and something neither was ready to name. Afterwards, they lay tangled together, sweat cooling on their skin, the room dark except for the ambient light from the grounds filtering through the windows. Alessandro traced patterns on her shoulder, his touch gentle in a way that contradicted everything she'd seen him do earlier. "No regrets?" he asked quietly. "A few, but not about this." She shifted to look at him. "Are you going to tell me this was a mistake? Would you listen if I did?" "No." His mouth curved. "Then I won't waste my breath." Livia settled back against him, her head on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "What happens now?" "Now you sleep. Tomorrow we figure out the rest." "That's not much of a plan. I'm making this up as I go." His arm tightened around her. "I've never done this before." "Had sex?" He laughed. "Had someone I actually care about, someone who knows what I am and stays anyway." The admission hung in the air, vulnerable and honest. Livia closed her eyes, breathing in his scent, cologne and soap, and underneath it all, just him. "I care about you too," she whispered. "I don't want to. It would be easier if I didn't, but I do." Alessandro didn't respond with words, just held her tighter, and somehow that said more than any declaration could have. They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, two broken people finding something almost whole in the spaces between them. Livia woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the warm weight of Alessandro's arm across her waist. For a moment, she just lay there, processing. She was in his bed, in his room. After choosing to witness murder and still coming back to him, she should feel different, changed, corrupted somehow. Instead, she just felt tired and strangely peaceful. Alessandro stirred behind her, pulling her closer, his breath warm against her neck. "You're thinking too loud." "How do you know I'm thinking?" "I can feel it. Your whole body tenses when you overthink." He pressed a kiss to her shoulder. "Talk to me." "I'm processing." "That's not talking." She turned to face him. His hair was messed from sleep, his eyes still heavy-lidded, and he looked younger somehow, less dangerous. "I watched you kill someone last night." "I know." "And then I slept with you." "I know that too." He searched her face. "Having second thoughts?" "No." "Maybe." "I don't know." She touched his jaw, the morning stubble rough under her fingers. "I should have second thoughts. Probably third and fourth ones too. But all I keep thinking is that he deserved it. That you did what needed to be done. And that makes me just as bad as you." "You're not bad, Livia." "Neither are you. Not entirely." She kissed him softly. "That's what scares me. You're not a monster. You're just a man making impossible choices. And I understand those choices now. I don't have to like them to understand them." Alessandro's expression softened. "When did you get so wise?" "When I married a crime lord and realized the world isn't as simple as I thought it was." She sat up, pulling the sheet with her. "What time is it?" He glanced at the clock. "Almost 9. We missed breakfast." "Teresa is going to have opinions." "Teresa always has opinions. She's paid to have them." He tugged the sheet, pulling her back down. "Stay." "I have class at 11. Skip it." "I'm not skipping class for sex." "Who said anything about sex?" "I was thinking coffee. Maybe some actual conversation where we're both clothed and you're not analyzing my moral failings." Livia laughed despite herself. "Fine, coffee. Then I'm going to class." They showered, separately, because together would definitely make her late, and dressed. Livia borrowed one of Alessandro's shirts since her clothes were scattered across his floor, and they made their way to the sunroom. Teresa was waiting with coffee and a knowing smile that made Livia blush. "Good morning, Mr. and Mrs. DeLuca." "Morning, Teresa," Alessandro said easily, like there was nothing unusual about Livia wearing his shirt at breakfast. "I've prepared your usual, and Mrs. DeLuca, I took the liberty of making your favorite." She set down plates, eggs, toast, fresh fruit. "Thank you," Livia murmured. Teresa left them alone. They ate in comfortable silence for a while, the kind that came from genuine ease rather than nothing to say. "I need to go to the office today," Alessandro said eventually. Meetings, paperwork, legitimate business that's somehow more boring than the illegal kind. Will you be home for dinner? Planning to cook for me? Planning to make sure you actually eat instead of surviving on whiskey and violence. His mouth twitched. I'll be home. 7, maybe 8. I'll be here. He reached across the table, caught her hand. Livia. What? Thank you. For what? For not running, for trying, for... He squeezed her fingers. For seeing past the worst parts and staying anyway. Her throat tightened. You're welcome. They finished breakfast. Alessandro left for his office in a suit that made him look every inch the legitimate businessman. Livia went to her wing, changed into her own clothes, and logged into her online class. But she couldn't concentrate. Her mind kept drifting back to the warehouse, to the sound of the gunshot, to Alessandro's face when he pulled the trigger, calm, controlled, devoid of emotion. Then to later, to his hands on her skin, his voice saying her name like a prayer, the way he'd held her after like she was something precious instead of a purchased wife. She was in love with him. The realization hit her like a physical blow. She was in love with Alessandro De Luca, crime lord, killer, the man who'd bought her to solve a political problem. And the terrifying part was that she didn't want to take it back. Her phone buzzed. A text from Emma. Coffee tomorrow. I miss your face. Livia stared at the message. Emma. Her friend from before. From the world where violence was theoretical and choices were real. She typed back, can't tomorrow. Maybe next week? The response came quickly. Everything okay? You're being weird lately. Was she? Probably. How could she not be weird when her life had become this strange hybrid of luxury and danger, forced marriage and genuine feeling? I'm fine, just busy with school and life. Life equals mysterious husband? Livia smiled despite herself. Something like that. You know I'm here if you need to talk, right? About anything. No judgment. I know, thank you. She set down the phone and tried to focus on her coursework, but the words blurred together. Finally, she gave up and went to the library, pulled out her sketchbook, and started drawing. The design that emerged was a house. No, a fortress. All sharp angles and defensive positioning, but with unexpected softness in the interior spaces. Windows that looked like weapon slits from outside, but opened into garden courtyards within. A structure that could protect and nurture simultaneously. She was still sketching when Alessandro came home, hours earlier than he'd said. He found her in the library, surrounded by crumpled paper and abandoned coffee cups. You missed lunch. I wasn't hungry. He looked at her sketch, his expression unreadable. That's beautiful. It's a contradiction? Most beautiful things are. He sat beside her. I lied earlier. I didn't have meetings. I had a problem. Her stomach dropped. What kind of problem? The kind that involved Castellano changing his mind about our agreement. He decided 30,000 wasn't enough. Wanted to renegotiate. What did you do? I reminded him that renegotiation wasn't an option, that he'd taken my money and that meant the matter was closed. Alessandro's voice was flat. He disagreed, loudly, violently. Livia set down her pencil. Is he dead? No, but he won't be making trouble for anyone for a while. He touched her face. I'm sorry. I know you didn't sign up for this. I signed up for exactly this. I just didn't understand it at the time. She leaned into his touch. Is it always going to be like this? Problems and violence and threats? Probably. This is my world, Livia. Our world now. Then I guess I better get used to it. Alessandro pulled her close, and they sat like that in the fading afternoon light. Two people bound by circumstances and choice in equal measure, trying to build something real from the broken pieces they'd been given. The weeks that followed settled into something resembling normalcy. If normalcy could include armed guards and the constant awareness of danger lurking just beyond the estate's iron gates. Livia finished her coursework, submitted her final architecture project, a design for a community center that doubled as a safe house, all reinforced walls disguised as artistic expression, and started sleeping in Alessandro's room more nights than not. They didn't talk about what they were becoming. Didn't put labels on the shift from forced partnership to something that felt dangerously close to actual marriage. It was easier to just exist in the space between, where morning coffee and late-night conversations coexisted with the reality of blood on his hands and complicity in hers. But the fragile peace couldn't last. Livia should have known that. It shattered on a Tuesday. She was meeting Emma for coffee, their first in-person meeting in weeks. Alessandro had been reluctant to approve it, his protective instincts warring with his promise to give her freedom, but eventually he'd agreed. Marco drove her to the cafe, another guard taking position outside, and Livia had almost felt normal sliding into the booth across from her friend. Emma looked the same. Bright, energetic, her hair pulled into a messy bun, laptop covered in stickers. Finally, I was starting to think your husband had you locked in a tower. Just busy, Livia said, accepting the latte Emma had already ordered for her. Right, busy being married to a guy who requires security details for coffee dates. Emma's eyes were sharp. You gonna tell me what's really going on, or do we keep pretending everything's fine? Everything is fine. Livia. What do you want me to say, Em? Livia wrapped her hands around the warm cup. That my marriage is complicated? That my husband does things I don't fully understand? You already know all that. I want you to say you're happy, or at least safe. Emma leaned forward. Because from where I'm sitting, you look exhausted, like you're carrying weight you shouldn't have to carry. The observation hit too close. Livia looked away, watching the street outside. I'm managing. That's not the same as being happy. No, but it's all I've got right now. Emma was quiet for a moment. Then she reached across the table, squeezed Livia's hand. I'm worried about you. Don't be. I'm fine. Really. Livia forced a smile. Tell me about you. How's school? Are you still seeing that guy from your economics class? They talked for an hour, falling into easier conversation, and Livia almost forgot about the guards outside and the complicated man waiting for her at home. Almost. She was laughing at one of Emma's stories when the cafe door opened and 3 men walked in. Something about them immediately set off alarms, the way they moved, the way their eyes scanned the room, the particular tension in their shoulders. Marco stood from his table. One of the men turned to look at him, smirked, and pulled a gun. Everything happened fast and slow simultaneously. Marco drew his own weapon. Someone screamed. Emma grabbed Livia's arm. The cafe erupted into chaos, people diving under tables, baristas running for the back, the sharp crack of gunfire shattering the afternoon calm. Marco took a bullet to the shoulder but stayed on his feet, returning fire. The second guard burst through the front door. The 3 men scattered, one going down from Marco's shot, the others retreating toward the exit. Livia's ears rang. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Emma was crying, shaking, repeating, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God," like a mantra. We need to move, Marco said, blood spreading across his shirt, his face pale but focused. Now, Mrs. DeLuca. You're shot. I'm fine. Car's outside. We need to go before they regroup. He pulled her up, shielding her with his body as they moved toward the exit. Emma stumbled after them. Wait, Livia. Stay here, Livia said. Call the police. Stay safe. What about you? But Marco was already pushing her into the car, the second guard sliding into the driver's seat, and they were pulling away from the cafe with screaming tires and the wail of approaching sirens. Livia twisted to look back, saw Emma standing on the sidewalk, phone pressed to her ear, her face pale with shock and fear. Saw the body on the ground, blood pooling beneath it. Saw the normalcy she'd been clinging to shatter into irreparable pieces. Who were they? She asked, her voice shaking. Don't know yet. Marco pressed a hand to his shoulder, blood seeping between his fingers. But they knew who you were. This was targeted. The car swerved through traffic, taking corners too fast, running lights. Livia's hands clenched in her lap. You need a hospital. I need to get you somewhere safe first. Marco. No arguments, Mrs. DeLuca. They made it back to the estate in record time. The gates opened before they reached them, security already mobilized, and Alessandro was standing in the entrance when they pulled up. One look at Marco's bloody shoulder and his expression went from concern to absolutely murderous. Inside, he said, his voice deadly calm. Both of you, now. Marco stumbled getting out of the car. Alessandro caught him, supported his weight while shouting orders in rapid Italian. Staff appeared from nowhere. Someone to help Marco to the infirmary they apparently had. Someone else to secure the perimeter. Everyone moving with practiced efficiency that spoke of this not being the first time violence had reached their doorstep. Alessandro turned to Livia, his hands framing her face, eyes scanning her for injury. Are you hurt? No, I'm fine. Marco got shot protecting me. I know. He did his job. Alessandro pulled her against him, held her so tight she could barely breathe. Did you see who they were? No. 3 men. They had guns. Marco shot one. The words came out choppy, disconnected, shock setting in. Okay, you're safe now. He kissed her forehead, her temple, breathing like he'd been running. Come on. We need to get you somewhere secure. He led her to his office, a room she'd never been in, all dark wood and expensive technology and maps on the walls with pins marking locations she probably didn't want to know about. He guided her to a leather couch, wrapped a blanket around her shoulders, and poured her a drink. I don't want... Drink it anyway. You're shaking. She was. Her hands trembled as she accepted the glass, took a sip. Whiskey burned down her throat. Alessandro crouched in front of her, his hands on her knees. Tell me everything, from the beginning. So she did. Every detail she could remember, the men walking in, Marco standing, the guns, the gunfire, the body on the ground. Alessandro listened with that terrible stillness that meant he was processing, planning, already 3 steps ahead. It was Castellanos, he said when she finished. You don't know that. I know him. This is exactly his style, public, messy, designed to send a message. He's escalating because I humiliated him. Alessandro's jaw clenched, and he went after you to hurt me. What are you going to do? End this, permanently. He stood, moved to his desk, started making calls. Livia listened to him speak in clipped Italian, his voice cold and controlled, giving orders that she suspected involved violence and finality. When he hung up, she said, I'm sorry. He turned to look at her. For what? For putting Marco in danger. For being a liability. For... Stop. He crossed back to her, tilted her chin up. You're not a liability. You're my wife. And anyone who touches you signs their own death warrant. That's not your fault. That's theirs for being stupid enough to try. Someone died today because of me. Someone died today because they made the choice to attack you. Don't take that on. Don't let Castellano's decisions become your burden. His thumb brushed her cheek. You did nothing wrong. Then why do I feel like this is all my fault? Because you're a good person who isn't used to the kind of violence that comes with this life. But you'll learn. He kissed her softly. You're stronger than you think. Before she could respond, someone knocked. Dante, Alessandro's lieutenant, the one who'd killed the second man who hurt her father, entered without waiting for permission. We've got confirmation, he said. Castellano's people. The one Marco shot is in custody at the hospital. The other 2 got away, but we have eyes on their usual locations. Alessandro's expression went cold. Assemble the team. We move tonight. Already done. We're ready when you are. Good. He turned to Livia. I need you to stay here. In this room. Don't leave. Don't answer the door for anyone but Teresa or me. Understand? You're going after him. I'm ending this. Alessandro, no arguments, Livia. Not this time. Yes, his voice was steel. He came after you, shot one of my men, terrified you. He doesn't get to walk away from that. I don't want you to do something you'll regret. The only thing I'd regret is letting him live to try again. He kissed her once more, hard and claiming. I'll be back. Few hours, maybe less. Stay here. Then he was gone, Dante following, and Livia was alone in the office with the maps and the security monitors showing guards patrolling the grounds. She curled up on the couch, wrapped in the blanket that smelled like Alessandro's cologne, and waited. Time crawled. Minutes felt like hours. She watched the security feeds, counting guards, tracking their patterns. Tried not to think about Alessandro walking into danger. Tried not to imagine him not coming back. Her phone buzzed. A text from Emma. Are you okay? Police are asking questions. What do I tell them? Livia stared at the message. What could Emma possibly tell them? That Livia's husband was a crime lord? That the shooting was gang-related? That nothing about Livia's life was what it seemed? She typed back, "Tell them the truth. Men came in shooting, security protected me, I left. You don't know anything else. The truth doesn't include the part where your bodyguard shot someone? The truth is what keeps you safe, trust me." A long pause, then, "I'm scared for you." "Don't be, I'm protected, by people who shoot people." Livia didn't know how to respond to that, so she didn't. Just set down the phone and went back to watching the monitors. Teresa brought her food she didn't eat, coffee she barely touched. Gentle reassurances that Mr. DeLuca knew what he was doing, that he'd be home soon, that everything would be fine. But Teresa's eyes were worried, and that scared Livia more than anything. It was past midnight when she heard cars returning. She jumped up, ran to the window, saw the town car pulling up, Alessandro emerging, blood on his clothes, but moving under his own power. Relief hit her so hard she nearly collapsed. She was at the door when he entered, throwing herself at him, not caring about the blood or the gun still holstered at his side. He caught her, held her tight, buried his face in her hair. "I'm okay," he murmured. "I'm okay. I'm here." "Is it over?" "It's over." She pulled back to look at him. "What does that mean?" "It means Castellano won't be a problem anymore. Neither will his organization." Alessandro's voice was flat, final. "I gave him multiple chances to back down. He chose escalation. So I ended it." "You killed him?" "Yes." Livia should have felt something, horror, disgust, moral outrage. Instead, she just felt tired and safe. "Good." Something shifted in Alessandro's expression. "Good?" "He tried to hurt me. He shot Marco. He wouldn't stop." She met his eyes. "You did what you had to do. I understand that now." "Livia, I'm not naive anymore, Alessandro. I know what your world requires. What our world requires." She touched his face, not caring about the blood. "And I accept it. I accept you. All of it." He stared at her like she was something precious and terrifying simultaneously. Then he kissed her, desperate and claiming, tasting of copper and violence and relief. She kissed him back with equal fervor, needing the connection, needing proof that he was real and here and alive. They stumbled toward his room, shedding bloody clothes, finding each other in the dark with urgent hands and breathless affirmations. When they finally collapsed together, tangled and spent, Alessandro held her like she might disappear. "I love you," he said into the darkness. Livia's breath caught. "What?" "I love you. I know I shouldn't. I know it's complicated and messy and probably going to end badly, but I do." His arms tightened around her. "I've loved you since you cleaned blood from my hands and didn't run. Maybe before that. I don't know. But I love you." Tears pricked her eyes. "I love you too." "You don't have to say it just because I'm not." She turned to face him. "I love you, Alessandro. I hate that I do. I hate that it makes everything more complicated. But I do. I love you." He kissed her softly, reverently, like she was something holy instead of something he'd bought. "We're insane," she whispered against his mouth. "Completely. This is never going to be normal. I don't want normal. I want you." She kissed him again, deeper this time, and they lost themselves in each other until exhaustion finally dragged them both under. The next morning, Livia woke to find Alessandro already awake, watching her with an intensity that made her skin warm. "How long have you been staring at me?" she asked. "Not long. Hour, maybe." "That's creepy." "Probably." He touched her face. "I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and you'll be gone, that you'll come to your senses and run." "I'm not going anywhere." "Promise?" "Promise." She kissed his palm. "What happens now?" "Now we figure out how to actually live, together. No more pretending this is just an arrangement." He pulled her closer. "I want a real marriage, Livia. With you, if you'll have me." "You're asking me to marry you. We're already married. I'm asking you to choose it. Choose me. Not because your father forced you or because you had no other option, but because you want to." Livia's throat tightened. "I choose you. I choose this, even knowing what it means. Even knowing I'll never be the husband you deserve, that I'll always have blood on my hands? Even then, Because you're also the man who gives me freedom, who protects the people I love, who sees me as more than decoration. She smiled through threatening tears. You're not perfect, Alessandro, but you're mine. He kissed her then, slow and sweet, sealing the promise between them. They spent the morning in bed, talking about everything and nothing. Alessandro told her about his plans to legitimize more of the business, to transition away from the violent parts while maintaining the power and protection they provided. Livia talked about her architecture degree, about wanting to design spaces that helped people, that made the world slightly less terrible. I want to start a foundation, she said, for women escaping dangerous situations, safe houses disguised as normal buildings, help them restart their lives. Alessandro studied her. Using your architecture skills, and your money, and your protection. She met his eyes. I want to use what we have to help people like me, people who got trapped and need a way out. You're not trapped anymore. No, but I was, and I remember what that felt like. She sat up, energized by the idea forming in her mind. We could actually do good with all this. Turn something corrupt into something helpful. You want to launder my reputation along with my money. I want to give us both a legacy that's more than violence and fear. Alessandro was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled, genuine, reaching his eyes. Okay, let's do it. Start your foundation. I'll fund it. We'll build something good from all this darkness. He pulled her back down. But first I need to make sure Marco gets proper medical care and the families of anyone hurt yesterday are compensated. Is Marco going to be okay? He'll live. Bullet went clean through. He's already complaining about being on bed rest. Alessandro's expression sobered. He saved your life, Livia. I owe him everything. We both do. They spent the rest of the day planning. Alessandro made calls, set up meetings with his lawyers and accountants. Livia sketched preliminary designs for safe houses, her mind racing with possibilities. Teresa brought them food they actually ate, looking pleased to see them working together instead of circling each other warily. By evening, the foundation had a name, New Beginnings, and a preliminary structure. Alessandro's lawyers would handle the legal framework. Livia would oversee the design and implementation. They'd start small, one building, and grow from there. This is really happening, Livia said, looking at the notes covering Alessandro's desk. Did you doubt it would? Yes. Maybe. I don't know. She turned to face him. A month ago, I was a prisoner. Now I'm planning a charity foundation with my husband, who I actually love. It doesn't feel real. It's real. He stood, crossed to her, pulled her into his arms. We're real. This is real. And we're going to make it work. Even with the violence and the danger and the complicated legacy. Especially with all that. Because we're stronger together than apart. He kissed her forehead. You make me want to be better, Livia. To build instead of just destroy. That's worth fighting for. She held him tight, breathing in his scent, feeling the steady beat of his heart against her cheek. I was so angry when my father told me about the arrangement. I wanted to hate you forever. What changed? You did. Or maybe I did. Or maybe we both just stopped pretending and started seeing each other clearly. She pulled back to look at him. Either way, I'm glad I stayed. So am I. They kissed, soft and lingering, and Livia thought about how far they'd come from that sterile wedding ceremony, how they'd built something real from the broken pieces of a forced arrangement, how love could grow in the strangest places if you let it. Later that night, curled together in Alessandro's bed, Livia's phone buzzed. A text from her mother. Your father wants to see you, says he has something important to tell you. She showed it to Alessandro. His expression darkened. You don't have to go. Yes, I do. He's still my father, no matter how much he's messed up. Then I'm coming with you. Alessandro, non-negotiable. After yesterday, you don't go anywhere without me or serious security, and I'd rather it be me. She wanted to argue, wanted to prove she could handle her own family, but looking at the determination in his face, she just nodded. Okay. Tomorrow? Tomorrow. They fell asleep holding each other, and Livia dreamed of buildings that could protect and heal simultaneously, of turning violence into sanctuary, of futures that looked nothing like the past. The next afternoon, they drove to her parents' apartment. Alessandro insisted on checking the building first, sending 2 guards ahead to sweep for threats. Livia waited in the car, watching him work, seeing the careful calculation behind every decision. Finally, he opened her door. Clear, but I'm staying in the room with you. Papa might not talk with you there. Then he doesn't talk. Your safety matters more than his comfort. They climbed the familiar stairs. Maria answered the door, her face lighting up when she saw Livia, then falling slightly when she noticed Alessandro behind her. Mrs. Moretti, Alessandro said politely. Mr. De Luca. Maria stepped aside. Vincent's in the living room. Her father looked better than the last time she'd seen him. The bruises had faded to yellow-green, and he was moving without wincing. He stood when they entered, his eyes going from Livia to Alessandro and back. You brought him. He's my husband, Papa. Where I go, he goes. Livia sat on the couch. Alessandro remained standing, positioned where he could see all the exits. What did you want to tell me? Vincent sat heavily. I'm done gambling, for real this time. I've heard that before. I know, but this time, he looked at his hands. I almost got you killed. I heard about the shooting, about what happened at that cafe. And I know it was my fault. If I hadn't borrowed from Castellano in the first place, it's handled, Alessandro interrupted. Castellano won't be bothering anyone anymore. Vincent's eyes widened. I protected my wife and eliminated a threat. That's all you need to know. Alessandro's voice was cold. What I want to know is if there are any other debts, any other enemies I should know about before they try to kill Livia. No, I swear, just those two, you and Castellano, and both are settled now. They better be, because if anyone else comes after my wife because of your choices, I won't be as understanding. The threat hung in the air, clear and absolute. Vincent nodded shakily. I'm done. I'm getting help, real help. There's a group for gamblers. Your mother made me go. He looked at Maria, something like shame in his expression. I'm trying. Good, Livia said. Keep trying. They stayed for coffee, the conversation stilted and awkward, but less hostile than before. Maria showed Livia pictures from a cousin's wedding, asked about her classes, carefully avoided asking about her marriage beyond surface pleasantries. When they finally left, Livia felt exhausted. You okay? Alessandro asked in the car. I don't know. He says he's changing. I want to believe him. But you don't. But I don't. She leaned against him. Is it wrong that I don't care as much anymore? That his problems feel distant? No, you're building your own life now. Separate from his choices. That's healthy. Is it? Or am I just becoming numb? Alessandro was quiet. Then, you're not numb. You're prioritizing. There's a difference. You can care about your father while also refusing to let his mistakes define your life. She turned the words over in her mind. When did you get so wise? Years of therapy, lots of therapy. He kissed her temple. Even crime lords need someone to talk to. The admission surprised her. You're in therapy? Was. For a while after my father died. Helped me process the violence, the legacy, the weight of it all. He shifted. I should probably go back. Talk through this. Us, the foundation, how to balance the life I inherited with the one I want. Would you want me to come with you? Couples therapy or something? You do that? We're building a life together. Might as well build it, right? Alessandro smiled, real and warm. Yeah, I'd like that. They spent the rest of the drive planning their future. Therapy appointments, foundation launch events, eventually moving some of Livia's things into Alessandro's room because pretending they weren't sharing a bed felt ridiculous at this point. By the time they reached the estate, Livia felt something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. Not the naive kind from before everything fell apart, but the hard-won kind that came from surviving the worst and choosing to build something better from the ruins. That night, wrapped in Alessandro's arms, Livia thought about the girl who'd walked down that cathedral aisle in a dress that cost more than her father's debts. How terrified she'd been. How certain that her life was over. She'd been wrong. Her life hadn't ended. It had just transformed into something she never expected. Something complicated and dangerous and real. What are you thinking about? Alessandro murmured sleepily. How far we've come. We've still got further to go. I know, but we'll go together. His arms tightened around her. Together. And for the first time since the wedding, Livia believed it. 3 months later, Livia stood in front of the first New Beginning safe house and felt something close to pride. The building looked ordinary from the outside, a renovated brownstone in a quiet neighborhood, nothing to draw unwanted attention. But inside, it was everything she'd designed it to be. Reinforced doors disguised as normal entrances, panic rooms hidden behind bookshelves. Security systems integrated so seamlessly that residents would feel protected without feeling trapped. It's perfect, Teresa said beside her. The older woman had insisted on coming to the opening, claiming someone needed to make sure Livia actually ate during the chaos of launch day. It's not perfect. The window latches on the third floor stick, and the kitchen layout is slightly off. Livia tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. But it's good. It's real. Mr. DeLuca is very proud of you, Livia smiled. Alessandro had been impossible during the construction process, insisting on additional security features, personally vetting every contractor, driving her crazy with his overprotective instincts. But he'd also shown up at every site inspection, listened to her ideas, and never once suggested she was doing it wrong. He's proud of himself for not micromanaging, Livia said. Teresa laughed. That too. The first residents were arriving tomorrow. 3 women and their children, escaping situations that ranged from domestic violence to forced marriages, eerily similar to what Livia's own had started as. She'd interviewed each of them personally, heard their stories, seen her own fear reflected in their eyes. The difference was she had resources now. Power. The ability to offer them what had been offered to her. A choice. A real one. Her phone buzzed. Alessandro. How's it looking? She typed back. Come see for yourself. On my way. 20 minutes. She pocketed her phone and did a final walkthrough, checking details, making mental notes of adjustments needed. The building still smelled like fresh paint and new beginnings, appropriate given the name. Alessandro arrived exactly 20 minutes later, Marco at his side. The guard's shoulder had healed, though he still favored it occasionally. He'd refused Alessandro's offer of desk duty, insisting he was fine for field work, and had appointed himself Livia's primary protection detail. Mrs. DeLuca, Marco greeted with a slight bow. How many times do I have to tell you to call me Livia? At least 100 more, apparently, but he was smiling. Alessandro kissed her cheek, then looked around with the assessing gaze he brought to everything. Show me. She led him through the building, explaining each feature, watching his expression shift from professional interest to something warmer. In the kitchen, he ran his hand along the counter. This is good work, Livia. You sound surprised. Not surprised, impressed. There's a difference. He turned to face her. You built something real here, something that's going to help people. We built it. Your money, your protection, your connections to get the permits pushed through, your vision, your design, your heart. He caught her hand. Don't diminish what you've done. Teresa cleared her throat from the doorway. I'm going to check the upstairs one more time. Make sure the linens arrived. She disappeared, leaving them alone. Alessandro pulled Livia closer, and she went willingly, wrapping her arms around his waist. I'm nervous, she admitted. What if this doesn't work? What if we can't actually help them? Then we try again, adjust, learn. He kissed her forehead. You're not going to fix everything overnight, Livia, but you're going to fix some things. That's more than most people ever do. When did you become so optimistic? When I married someone who sees the best in broken things. His arms tightened around her. You've changed me, made me want to be better. This foundation, transitioning the business toward legitimate operations, none of that would have happened without you. You give me too much credit. I give you exactly the credit you deserve. He pulled back to look at her. I have something to tell you about the business. Her stomach tightened. What kind of something? Good something, mostly. Alessandro led her to the kitchen table, sat, pulled her into the chair beside him. I've been working with the family council, restructuring. The violent operations, the ones that keep me up at night, I'm handing them off to Dante. He's better suited for it anyway. I'm focusing on the legitimate side, real estate, construction, the foundation. Livia's heart raced. You're serious? I'm serious. I'm not walking away completely. I can't. It's too embedded in who we are, and Dante will still report to me. But I'm stepping back from the parts that put you in danger, the parts that make me into someone you shouldn't love. He touched her face. I want to build things with you, not just destroy things for you. Tears pricked her eyes. Alessandro, let me finish. I know it won't be perfect. I know there will still be violence, still be threats, but it'll be less. And maybe someday, our children won't have to inherit a legacy built on blood. Children? The word came out choked. Eventually, if you want them. He looked uncertain for the first time since she'd known him. Do you? Want them, I mean? I haven't really thought about it. Think about it now. Livia closed her eyes, tried to imagine it. A child with Alessandro's eyes and her stubbornness, teaching them to be strong but kind, raising them in a world that was dangerous but also full of possibility. Yes, she said finally. Someday, when we're ready. When the foundation is stable and the business is more legitimate and we've had more than 3 months of actually being happy together. Alessandro laughed, relief evident. So 5 years? Maybe 4. Deal. He kissed her, soft and sweet. I love you, Livia De Luca. I love you too, even when you're being overprotective and impossible. Especially then. They sat in the quiet kitchen of the safe house, holding each other, and Livia thought about futures that looked nothing like pasts, about the possibility of building something good from something that had started so wrong. The opening day was chaos. The 3 women arrived with their children, ranging from toddlers to teenagers, all carrying everything they owned in garbage bags and worn suitcases. Livia greeted each of them personally, showed them to their rooms, explained the rules and resources available. One woman, Sarah, gripped Livia's hand with trembling fingers. Thank you. You don't know what this means. But Livia did know. She remembered the feeling of being trapped with no way out, of having choices made for her instead of by her. You're safe here, she said, and when you're ready to leave, we'll help you start over. New city, new job, new life, whatever you need. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. I don't know how to repay you. You don't have to. Just heal. That's enough. Over the next few weeks, Livia split her time between the safe house and the estate. She hired a social worker to handle day-to-day operations, but she visited regularly, checking on residents, making sure the building was functioning as designed. Alessandro came with her sometimes, keeping his distance from the residents, but always there as backup. The women who knew who he was gave him wary looks. The ones who didn't just saw him as Livia's protective husband. They're afraid of you, Livia said one evening after a visit. Good. Fear keeps them safe. If my reputation prevents anyone from coming after them, then it's useful. That's very practical. I'm a practical man. He glanced at her. Does it bother you that they're afraid? A little, but I understand it. You're intimidating. Only to people who should be intimidated. He took her hand. I'd never hurt them, you know, these women you're protecting. They're under my protection too, by extension of being under yours. I know. And she did. For all his violence and dangerous edges, Alessandro had lines he wouldn't cross. Women and children were on the protected side of those lines. The therapy helped. They'd started couples counseling with a therapist who specialized in high-stress relationships. Alessandro had found someone who'd worked with military couples and could handle the unique pressures without asking too many questions about the specifics of his business. They went twice a month, working through communication issues, navigating the power dynamics in their relationship, learning to trust each other fully. You're both doing really well, Dr. Chen said during their 3rd month of sessions. The growth I've seen has been remarkable. We're trying, Livia said. More than trying. You're succeeding. Dr. Chen looked between them. When you first came in, you were 2 people forced together by circumstances, trying to make the best of an impossible situation. Now you're partners, real partners. Alessandro squeezed Livia's hand. We had good motivation. Love is powerful motivation, Dr. Chen agreed. But it takes work to transform something that started under duress into something healthy. You've both put in that work. After the session, they walked through the city instead of taking the car. Marco and another guard trailed at a discreet distance, but it felt almost normal, almost like they were just a regular couple instead of a crime lord and his formerly reluctant wife. "I've been thinking about something," Alessandro said. "Should I be worried?" "Probably." He smiled. "I want to renew our vows. Do it properly this time. Not a forced ceremony with 500 witnesses you didn't know. Something small, intimate, just us and the people we actually care about." Livia stopped walking. "You want to remarry me?" "I want to marry you for real. The first time doesn't count. You didn't choose it." He turned to face her fully. "This time, I want you to choose. Want us both to choose. Make it real." "It already is real." "I know. But I want it to feel real. Want you to walk toward me because you want to, not because your father forced you." His eyes were intense. "Will you marry me, Livia? Again? For real this time?" Her throat tightened. "Yes. Yes, I'll marry you." He kissed her right there on the sidewalk, and Livia didn't care that people were staring or that Marco was probably rolling his eyes, or that this was completely impractical. She just cared that Alessandro wanted to claim her as much as she wanted to claim him. They planned the ceremony for the safe house's 6-month anniversary. Small, like Alessandro promised. Just Teresa, Marco, Dante, Livia's parents, Emma, and Dr. Chen as officiant. No cathedral, no forced guests, no pretense. Just truth. The night before, Livia stayed in her old wing, the one she barely used anymore, because Alessandro insisted on some traditions. She lay awake staring at the ceiling, processing everything that had led to this moment. Emma called around midnight. "You nervous?" "Shouldn't I be?" "It's my wedding. Again." "It's different this time." "Yeah, this time I actually want it." Livia rolled onto her side. "Is that crazy? That I'm excited to marry the man I was forced to marry 6 months ago?" "It's definitely unconventional, but I've seen you two together. Whatever this started as, it's real now." Emma paused. "He makes you happy. That's what matters." "He does, even with all the complicated parts." "All relationships are complicated. Yours just has more security guards than average." Emma's voice softened. "I'm happy for you, Liv." "Really?" They talked until Livia's eyes grew heavy, about everything and nothing, like they used to before life got complicated. When they finally hung up, Livia felt settled, ready. The morning of the ceremony, Teresa appeared with coffee and a knowing smile. "Nervous?" "Not even a little." "Good. Because Mr. DeLuca is downstairs pacing like a caged animal, and someone needs to be calm." Livia laughed. "He's nervous?" "Terrified, apparently. Dante said he's never seen him like this." The image of Alessandro nervous made something warm bloom in Livia's chest. She dressed carefully, not the elaborate gown from the first wedding, but a simple dress in cream silk that she'd chosen herself. No veil, no train, just her. When she descended the stairs, Alessandro was waiting in the entrance hall. He wore a dark suit, no tie, looking elegant but relaxed. When he saw her, his expression transformed into something close to awe. "You're beautiful," he said. "You've said that before. I'll say it 1,000 more times, and it still won't be enough." They drove to the safe house together, hands linked, neither needing to fill the silence with words. When they arrived, their small group of guests was waiting in the garden Livia had designed, a private courtyard behind the building, all flowering plants and comfortable seating. Dr. Chen stood ready, holding a simple folder with the ceremony she'd helped them write. Maria dabbed at her eyes. Vincent stood beside her, looking healthier than Livia had seen him in years. Apparently 6 months of actual recovery was making a difference. Teresa beamed. Marco tried to look professional but couldn't quite hide his smile. Dante stood with his arms crossed, but his expression was softer than usual. Emma bounced on her toes, phone ready to take pictures. Alessandro took Livia's hands, and Dr. Chen began. "We're gathered here today to witness the marriage of Alessandro and Livia. Not their legal marriage. That happened 6 months ago under very different circumstances. But their real marriage. The one they're choosing freely, with full hearts and clear eyes." She smiled at them. "Alessandro, you asked to speak first." He cleared his throat. "Livia, when I first met you, I thought I was getting a wife in name only, a solution to a political problem. I didn't expect to get a partner, a friend, Someone who saw past the worst parts of me and stayed anyway. His voice roughened. You've made me want to be better, to build instead of destroy, to think about legacy in terms of what I create, not what I control. I love you more than I thought possible, and I promise to spend the rest of my life proving that you made the right choice by choosing me. Livia's vision blurred. Alessandro, 6 months ago I hated you. I thought you were a monster who'd stolen my freedom. I was wrong. You gave me more freedom than I'd ever had. The freedom to choose who I wanted to be, what I wanted to build, how I wanted to live. She squeezed his hands. You challenged me, protected me, loved me even when I was difficult and stubborn and fighting you every step of the way. I love you, not despite who you are, but because of it. And I choose you. Every day, I choose you. Dr. Chen's voice was gentle. By the power vested in me, and more importantly, by the commitment you've both made to each other, I pronounce you husband and wife. Again, for real this time. Alessandro pulled Livia close and kissed her while their small gathering applauded. It wasn't the spectacle of their first wedding. There were no cameras, no news coverage, no 500 guests pretending to celebrate. It was just them, real and messy and perfect in its imperfection. The reception was cake and champagne in the safe house kitchen. They ate and laughed and told stories. Maria pulled Livia aside at one point, gripping her hands. I'm sorry, she whispered, for letting your father put you in that situation, for not fighting harder. Mama, it's okay. I'm happy. I know. I can see that. But I'm still sorry. Livia hugged her tight. I forgive you, both of you. It worked out. That doesn't make it right. No, but it makes it survivable, and sometimes that's enough. Vincent approached hesitantly. Can I talk to you? She nodded, and they stepped into the garden. He looked older, the weight of his mistakes written in the lines around his eyes. I'm 6 months sober, he said, from gambling, from drinking, from all of it. That's good, Papa. It doesn't fix what I did. Doesn't change that I sold you like property. No, it doesn't. But I'm trying, really trying this time. And I wanted you to know that I'm proud of you, of this place, of what you've built. You turned something terrible into something good. His voice cracked. You're a better person than I ever was. Livia's throat tightened. I learned from your mistakes. That's worth something. Yeah, I guess it is. He hesitated, then hugged her, brief and awkward but genuine. Be happy, Livia. That's all I want now. I am, Papa. I really am. Inside, Alessandro was talking with Dante, their heads bent close in conversation. Livia watched him, her husband, her partner, her choice, and felt something settle deep in her chest. This was her life now. Not the one she'd planned, but the one she'd built from the ruins of forced circumstance. And it was good, complicated and dangerous and far from perfect, but good. As the sun set over the garden, casting everything in golden light, Alessandro caught her eye and smiled. She smiled back, and in that moment, everything else fell away. The months that followed were busy. The foundation expanded. They opened a second safe house, then a third. Livia hired more staff, refined her designs, worked with city officials to create programs that could help more women. Alessandro made good on his promise to step back from the violent operations. Dante took over that side of the business. And while Alessandro still maintained ultimate authority, the day-to-day brutality was no longer his burden. He focused on real estate development, using his resources to build affordable housing and community centers alongside the high-end properties that funded everything else. They became a power couple in unexpected ways. Alessandro's business acumen and Livia's architectural vision combining to reshape parts of the city. People whispered about the crime lord who'd gone soft, but they whispered with respect, not mockery. One evening, nearly a year after their renewal ceremony, Livia found Alessandro in his office, staring at financial reports. What's wrong? She asked. Nothing's wrong. That's what's strange. He gestured to the papers. The legitimate operations are outperforming the illegal ones. We're making more money through legal channels than we ever did through violence. Is that a problem? It's unexpected, and it means... He looked up at her. It means we could walk away. From the organization, from the violence, from all of it. Just run the businesses legitimately. Livia's heart raced. Are you serious? I'm considering it. Dante could take over completely. I'd maintain advisor status, but we'd be out, really out. He stood, cross to her. We could have a normal life, Livia, or as normal as we're capable of. What about the danger? The enemies you've made? They'd still exist, but without active involvement, we'd be less of a target. And we'd keep security, obviously, but it would be different, safer. She thought about it, about what it would mean to truly leave that world behind. What do you want? I want you to be safe. I want our future children to have a father who doesn't come home covered in blood. I want to build instead of destroy. He cupped her face. I want the life we talked about in therapy. The one where we're just people who love each other, not pawns in a dangerous game. Then let's do it. The decision felt right, settling into her bones with certainty. Let's walk away. The transition took months. Alessandro had to navigate complex organization politics, ensure Dante's position was secure, guarantee that stepping back wouldn't be seen as weakness. But he managed it, using the same strategic mind that had made him feared to make himself free. By the time Livia's architecture degree was officially complete, she'd walked across the stage to receive her diploma with Alessandro, cheering embarrassingly loud from the audience. They were out. Not completely disconnected, but removed from the day-to-day violence. Alessandro started a development firm. Livia joined as lead architect. They worked together, designing buildings that served communities, creating spaces that helped people instead of just housing them. The foundation continued to grow. They opened safe houses in 3 cities, helped over 100 women restart their lives, created programs that became models for other organizations. And through it all, they chose each other. Every day, every argument, every triumph, every normal moment, and every extraordinary one. 2 years after their renewal ceremony, Livia stood in the bathroom of their estate, staring at a positive pregnancy test with shaking hands. She found Alessandro in the library. He looked up from his book, saw her expression, and immediately stood. What's wrong? She held out the test. We're having a baby. He stared at it, then at her, then back at the test. I'm pregnant. Alessandro's face transformed, cycling through shock and joy and fear and love in rapid succession. Then he was crossing to her, pulling her into his arms, holding her so tight she could barely breathe. We're having a baby, he repeated, like he couldn't quite believe it. Are you happy? She pulled back to see his face. I'm terrified, and ecstatic, and completely unprepared. He touched her stomach gently. But yes, I'm happy. They told their families at Sunday dinner, a tradition they'd started, gathering everyone at the estate once a month. Maria cried. Vincent looked proud. Teresa immediately started planning nursery designs. Emma screamed and demanded to be named godmother. Marco, ever professional, just nodded and said, I'll adjust security protocols. The pregnancy was surprisingly normal. Livia worked through most of it, designing a new safe house with accessible features for women with disabilities. Alessandro hovered like an anxious shadow, driving her crazy with his overprotectiveness until she finally banned him from certain rooms. You can't ban me from my own office, he protested. Watch me. You're stressing me out more than the actual pregnancy. I just want you safe. I am safe. But I need space to breathe, Alessandro. He tried, really tried. But the closer she got to her due date, the more impossible he became. Finally, doctor. Chen suggested he go to a few sessions alone to work through his anxiety about becoming a father. It's normal to be scared, Livia overheard the therapist saying during one session. Your father wasn't a good role model, but you're not him. You've already proven that. What if I mess this up? Alessandro's voice was raw. What if I can't protect them? What if you're exactly the father your child needs? Someone who knows how dark the world can be but chooses to build light anyway. The baby came 3 weeks early. Livia's water broke while she was at the foundation office, reviewing grant applications. Marco got her to the hospital in record time, calling Alessandro on the way. Her husband arrived looking wild-eyed and terrified, bursting into the labor room like he expected to find her under attack. I'm fine, she said through a contraction. Stop looking like that. Like what? Like you're about to kill someone. I might. This is taking too long. I've been in labor for 2 hours. Exactly. Too long. Despite his panic, Alessandro stayed with her through the entire process, holding her hand, coaching her breathing, being exactly what she needed, even when he looked like he might pass out. Their daughter was born at dawn, small and perfect, and screaming her displeasure at the world. The nurse placed her in Livia's arms, and everything else fell away. "She's beautiful," Alessandro whispered, touching their daughter's tiny hand with one finger. "She's ours." "Yeah," his voice broke. "She's ours." They named her Sofia Teresa de Luca, after Alessandro's grandmother and the woman who'd helped them both find their way. She had Alessandro's dark eyes and Livia's stubborn chin, and from the moment she arrived, she owned them both completely. The first few months were exhausting. Sleepless nights and constant worry, and the overwhelming responsibility of keeping another human alive. But they managed it together, trading off night feedings, supporting each other through the hard moments, finding joy in the small victories. "I never knew I could love something this much," Alessandro said one night, holding Sofia while Livia tried to catch a few hours of sleep. "It's terrifying. Welcome to parenthood. How do people do this? How do they survive the constant fear that something will happen to them? Same way we survived everything else, one day at a time, together." He looked at her, Sofia sleeping peacefully in his arms, and smiled. Together. Sofia grew. 6 months became a year, became 2 years. She started walking, talking, developing a personality that was equal parts stubborn and sweet. The estate filled with toys and laughter and the chaos of toddlerhood. Livia went back to work part-time, designing buildings while Sofia napped or played with Teresa. Alessandro adjusted his schedule to be home more, choosing family dinners over business meetings, bath time over late-night calls. They were building a life, a real one, the kind neither had expected when they'd first stood at that altar and whispered vows they didn't mean. On their 3rd anniversary, counting from the renewal, not the original ceremony, they stood in the garden of their first safe house and watched new residents arrive. Sofia played with Marco's daughter nearby, their laughter bright in the afternoon sun. "Remember when you first showed me this place?" Alessandro asked. "You were skeptical." "I was. I thought it was idealistic, that you couldn't really help people just by giving them a safe space. And now? Now I know I was wrong. You've helped hundreds of women, changed hundreds of lives." He pulled her close. "You've changed mine most of all." Livia leaned into him. "We changed each other's." "Yeah, we did." He kissed her temple. "Thank you." "For what?" "For staying, for choosing me, for building this life with me even when it seemed impossible. Thank you for being worth choosing." They stood together in the garden they'd built, watching their daughter play in the space they'd created, surrounded by the evidence of what they'd accomplished. It wasn't the life either had planned, but it was the life they'd chosen, piece by piece, choice by choice, day by day. And it was good, not perfect. Nothing ever was. There were still hard days, still moments when the violence of Alessandro's past threatened to intrude, still times when Livia wondered if they'd made the right choices. But they faced those moments together, choosing each other over and over again. That night, after Sofia was asleep and the house was quiet, Livia found Alessandro on the terrace, staring out at the grounds. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, sliding her arms around him from behind. "How different my life could have been. If your father hadn't owed me money, if I'd never offered that arrangement, if you'd said no. But I didn't. No, you said I do, and changed everything." He turned to face her. "I don't believe in fate or destiny or any of that, but I believe in choices. And I believe that somehow we made the right ones. Even when we didn't know they were right at the time. Especially then," he cupped her face. "I love you, Livia De Luca. Today, tomorrow, forever. I love you too. Even though you bought me like property and drove me crazy and made me fall for you despite my better judgment. Especially because of all that." She laughed, and he kissed her under the stars. And somewhere in the distance, Sofia stirred in her sleep, and the world continued turning, indifferent to the small miracle of 2 broken people who'd found each other in the wreckage and built something whole. Years later, when Sofia asked how they'd met, Livia and Alessandro looked at each other and smiled. "It's complicated," Alessandro said. We didn't like each other at first, Livia added, but we learned to. And then we chose each other. Every day, they said together. Sophia wrinkled her nose. That's a boring story. Maybe, Livia said, pulling her daughter close. But it's ours, and that makes it perfect. Alessandro wrapped his arms around both of them, and in that moment, surrounded by the family they'd built from impossible circumstances, Livia knew it was true. This was their story. Born from violence, shaped by choice, transformed by love. Not the fairy tale she'd dreamed of as a girl, but something better, something real. And in the end, real was all that mattered. They'd survived the worst, built the best, and chosen each other through all of it. That was enough. That was everything.